10 types of older men younger women secretly desire. Psychology tricks. Love does not consist in gazing at each other, but in looking outward together in the same direction. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. What if the real reason some older men attract younger women has nothing to do with flashy wealth, perfect looks, or empty swagger? Most men have been taught to believe attraction is built on surface-level things, but real attraction rarely begins there. It begins deeper, in presence, in self-possession, in the quiet strength of a man who knows who he is and does not need to prove it. That is where the mystery starts. That is where curiosity turns into desire. Younger women are often drawn not just to age, but to what age can represent when a man has lived with purpose, emotional steadiness, life experience, calm confidence, and a grounded energy that younger men often have not yet developed. In this video, we are going to uncover 7 types of older men that younger women secretly find magnetic, and the reasons may surprise you. Once you understand the psychology behind this attraction, you will stop chasing attention the wrong way and start seeing what truly creates connection. This is not about pretending. It is not about tricks in the shallow sense. It is about recognizing the qualities that naturally make a man stand out and using that understanding to approach relationships with more wisdom, confidence, and clarity. So, if you are ready to discover what truly makes an older man unforgettable in the eyes of a younger woman, let's begin. 1. The creative visionary. This is where attraction begins to move beyond the surface and into something far more powerful, something that quietly taps into female psychology in a way most men never fully understand. Creativity is not just about art or imagination. It is a signal, a deep signal of intelligence, awareness, and the ability to see life differently, and that alone creates a pull that younger women feel almost instinctively. Don't think you need to be flashy. Don't think you need to prove anything loudly. Be the man who sees what others miss. That is what sets you apart. While most men follow predictable patterns, repeating the same routines, the creative visionary steps outside of that box. He questions, he explores. He builds new paths where none existed before, and that mindset makes every interaction with him feel fresh, alive, and full of possibility. You must understand this. Attraction grows in environments of emotional stimulation, not boredom, and your ability to think differently becomes one of the most effective psychology tricks you can naturally possess. When a woman is around you, she doesn't just hear words. She experiences a shift in perspective. She feels curiosity. She feels expansion, and without even realizing it, she begins to associate you with excitement and growth, which is a key foundation in how to fall in love. A creative visionary does not chase attention. He creates experiences. He doesn't try to impress, he expresses, and in doing so, he invites others into his world, a world that feels richer, deeper, and more meaningful than the ordinary. That is powerful. Younger women, especially, are drawn to men who can elevate their thinking, who can introduce them to new ideas, new ways of seeing life, because it satisfies a deep emotional need for discovery and evolution. Don't underestimate this. Don't reduce attraction to looks or status. Be the man whose mind becomes the most interesting place she can explore. That is where real connection begins. And here is where it becomes even more important. Creativity signals emotional depth. It shows that you are not rigid, not stuck, not predictable, and in female psychology, unpredictability paired with emotional stability creates intrigue. You are not chaotic, you are expansive. You don't react blindly, you respond thoughtfully. You see patterns. You connect ideas. You bring a sense of wonder into ordinary moments. That is rare. That is magnetic. That is one of the subtle psychology tricks that works without effort, because it is not a tactic, it is who you are. Think about it. When you talk about your passions, your ideas, your vision for life, you are not just speaking, you are painting pictures in her mind, and those pictures create emotion, and emotion is the pathway to attraction, and attraction, when nurtured correctly, becomes the foundation of how to fall in love. You must lean into this. Don't hide your uniqueness. Don't water yourself down to fit in. Be bold in your thinking. Be unapologetic in your vision. Because the moment you start dimming your creativity to be safe, You lose the very thing that makes you unforgettable. A creative visionary also brings direction. Not control, not pressure, but direction. He knows where he is going, even if the path is unconventional, and that sense of purpose gives younger women a feeling of emotional security wrapped in excitement, which is a rare combination. Most people offer one or the other. You offer both. That is your advantage. That is how you stand out without trying too hard. So remember this clearly. Attraction is not about performing, it is about expressing. It is not about copying others, it is about becoming more of who you already are. Use your creativity. Expand your thinking. Challenge the ordinary. Because when you do, you naturally activate powerful elements of female psychology. You apply the most authentic psychology tricks without manipulation. And you create the kind of emotional connection that quietly answers the question of how to fall in love without ever needing to force it. 2. The emotionally grounded man. The one who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior. That timeless idea still cuts deep today, because in a world full of noise, reactions, and emotional chaos, the man who stands still within himself becomes rare and powerful. Now listen closely. The emotionally grounded man is not a man without feelings. Don't misunderstand that. He feels deeply. He simply refuses to be ruled by what he feels. That is the difference. That is the edge. When tension rises, when conversations turn sharp, when emotions start to swirl, you don't jump in blindly. You don't chase every impulse. You pause. You breathe. You choose your response. That is strength. That is control. And that is what quietly signals that you are a high-value man. Most younger women have experienced the opposite. They've seen men react too quickly, say things they regret, shift moods without warning. One moment calm, the next moment distant or frustrated. That unpredictability creates tension. It creates doubt. It drains emotional safety. So when she meets you and you remain steady, it feels different. It feels safe. It feels real. Be the man who does not escalate. Be the man who listens fully before speaking. That is not passivity. That is power. Because when you hold your center, you create space. And in that space, she relaxes. She opens up. She feels understood without being judged. This is how you attract women without chasing them. You don't overwhelm her with intensity. You ground her with presence. That is masculine energy at its finest. Not loud, not forced, but calm, certain, and unshakable. When she tests you, and she will, don't react defensively. Don't rush to prove yourself. Stay composed. Smile if you must. Let your silence speak when words are unnecessary. Because a high-value man does not need to win every moment. He understands that true influence comes from emotional control, not emotional reaction. Think about this. A storm can be loud, chaotic, and destructive. But the mountain? The mountain does not move. It stands. It endures. It remains. Be that mountain. Because when she feels that stability in you, she begins to trust you without even realizing it. And trust is the foundation of attraction. Don't confuse emotional grounding with emotional distance. You are not cold. You are not detached. You are present. You engage. You care. But you do it with clarity, not confusion. You express yourself without losing yourself. That balance is rare. That balance is what makes you stand out in a world where most men are either too reactive or completely withdrawn. And here is the truth many men overlook. Peace is addictive. When a woman feels peaceful around you, she wants more of that feeling. She starts to associate you with calm, with clarity, with emotional safety. That is how you attract women on a deeper level. Not with tricks, not with performance, but with presence. You must train this. It does not happen by accident. Pay attention to your triggers. Notice what makes you react. Then slow it down. Give yourself space between stimulus and response. That space is where your power lives. That space is where masculine energy is built. Don't chase validation. Don't let your emotions control your actions. Be grounded. Be intentional. Be steady. Because in the end, the emotionally grounded man is not just attractive. He is unforgettable. He becomes the calm in her chaos, the clarity in her confusion, the peace she didn't know she needed. And once she feels that, she won't want to walk away. If this hits you, don't just watch, step into it. Become the man who doesn't react, but chooses. The man who stays calm when others lose control. The man who brings peace, not chaos. Drop this in the comments right now. I master my emotions. I am calm in the storm. Like the video, subscribe for more, and remember, real power isn't loud, it's steady. 3. The man who respects himself. The man who truly respects himself operates on a different level, and most men never reach it because they are too busy chasing approval, too busy adjusting themselves to fit into expectations that were never meant for them. But you, if you are paying attention, must understand this clearly. Respect is not given to the man who begs for it, it is earned by the man who embodies it. As Marcus Aurelius once said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. And that strength begins the moment you stop seeking validation and start standing firm in your own values, because a self-respecting man does not negotiate his worth. He does not bend just to be liked. He does not say yes when his soul is screaming no. He draws the line. He holds it. He lives by it. And that is exactly where old Stoic wisdom separates the average from the exceptional. In modern life, where attention is cheap and validation is handed out like currency on social media, most men lose themselves trying to be everything for everyone. But the man who wins, the man who lives Stoicism understands this, saying no is not rejection, it is protection, it is clarity, it is power. And when you master this, when you build that iron mind, something shifts, something undeniable, something magnetic. People, especially women, can feel when a man is grounded in himself, when he is not performing, not pretending, not seeking approval, but simply being fully and unapologetically. And here is the truth you must accept. Younger women are not just drawn to looks or status. They're drawn to emotional certainty, to the man who knows who he is and refuses to compromise that identity. Because in a world full of confusion, that clarity feels rare. It feels safe. It feels attractive. And when she sees that you don't chase, you don't beg, you don't over-explain, she begins to lean in, not because you asked her to, but because your presence commands it. As Epictetus taught, don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. That is your instruction. Stop talking about your value. Start living it. Stop trying to prove yourself. Start trusting yourself. Because a man who respects himself moves differently. He walks into a room without needing attention, yet attention finds him. He speaks less, but says more. He listens, but never loses himself. He gives, but never at the cost of his own dignity. And that balance, that control, that discipline, is what creates attraction that lasts, not the kind built on illusion, but the kind built on truth. So bring this into your daily life. Apply it when you are tempted to overextend, when you feel the urge to please, when you are about to say yes just to avoid discomfort. Pause. Breathe. Choose yourself. Because every time you honor your boundaries, you reinforce your identity. You strengthen your iron mind. You step deeper into Stoicism win. You become the man who does not need to chase respect because he lives it. And once you reach that point, everything changes. Your energy changes. Your decisions change. Your relationships change. Because now you're no longer asking, do they like me? You're asking, does this align with who I am? And that is the mindset of a man who leads. A man who stands firm. A man who does not settle. And that is exactly the kind of man a younger woman recognizes instantly, not because you told her, but because she feels it the moment you walk in. 4. The enigma. The enigma is not a trick, it is a presence, and you must understand this clearly. Women are not drawn to what is obvious. They are drawn to what they cannot fully grasp, because female psychology is wired to explore, to feel, to uncover layers over time. So don't rush to explain yourself. Don't overshare your story. Don't hand over your depth all at once, because the moment everything is known, the curiosity fades, and with it, the attraction. Be the man who reveals slowly, the man who speaks with intention, the man who understands that silence, when used with control, is one of the most powerful psychology tricks you will ever master. Your silence is not emptiness, it is presence. It creates space for her imagination, and in that space, she begins to build her own connection to you, stronger than anything you could force with words. That is how to fall in love without chasing it, without begging for it, without trying to impress. You must let her lean in. You must let her wonder. Because when every conversation with you feels like a story still unfolding, she becomes emotionally invested in discovering the next chapter. That is the power of mystery. Most men talk too much. Most men explain too much. Most men try too hard to be understood. Don't do that. Be selective. Be intentional. Say less, but mean more. Let your words carry weight, not noise. This is where psychology tricks meet emotional intelligence, where female psychology responds not to what you say, but to how you make her feel when you don't say everything. You create a rhythm, a pull, a sense that there is always more beneath the surface. And that is what keeps her coming back. Not because you are playing games, but because you are grounded enough to not seek constant validation. That is attractive. That is rare. That is powerful. Remember this. Mystery is not about being distant. It is about being layered. It is about having depth that cannot be consumed in a single moment. You must have a life, a purpose, a mindset that is bigger than the interaction itself, because when a man is fully focused on a woman, he becomes predictable, and predictability kills intrigue. But when a man has direction, when he moves with quiet confidence, when he speaks only when necessary, he naturally becomes intriguing without trying. That is how to fall in love the right way, not by forcing connection, but by allowing it to grow through curiosity. Let her ask questions. Let her try to understand you. Let her earn pieces of your story over time. Because what is earned is always valued more than what is freely given. And here is the truth most men never realize. Attraction is not built through constant presence. It is built through emotional tension, through moments of closeness followed by space, through the balance of warmth and restraint. These are not manipulation tactics. These are timeless psychology tricks rooted in human nature, rooted in female psychology that seeks both safety and excitement at the same time. Be warm, but not overwhelming. Be open, but not exposed. Be present, but not always available. That is the balance. That is the art. And when you master this, you don't chase love, you attract it. You don't try to be interesting. You become interesting by simply not giving everything away. So slow down. Hold back. Let your presence speak before your words do. Because the man who is an enigma is the man who is remembered, the man who is felt long after the conversation ends, the man who understands deeply how to fall in love without losing himself in the process. If this opened your eyes, don't just watch, act. Like the video, subscribe for more powerful insights, and step into a deeper version of yourself. And drop this in the comments to lock it into your mind. I don't reveal everything. I let mystery create attraction. Five. The self-made man. The self-made man. This is where everything changes. Because achievements, real ones, don't need to announce themselves. They speak, quietly, powerfully. And younger women feel that without you saying a word. A young man talks about what he will do. He paints pictures of a future he hasn't built yet. But you've already walked through fire. You've failed. You've rebuilt. You've stood alone when things fell apart. And that difference? It's everything. Don't try to impress her with words. Don't oversell your story. Be the story. That is what a high-value man understands. Your life is the proof. You carry something most men can't fake, experience. Not just years, but lessons. Hard-earned. Paid for in time, in mistakes, in discipline. And that shows in how you move, how you speak, how you decide. You don't rush. You don't chase validation. You don't crumble under pressure. Be steady. Be intentional. Be grounded. That is masculine energy in its purest form. Not loud, not forced, just present, just undeniable. And when a younger woman senses that, she feels it as safety, not boredom, as direction, not control. She sees a man who knows where he's going because he's already been lost and found his way back. It's not about money. Let's be clear. Money is a result. not the foundation. The real attraction comes from discipline, from waking up when you didn't feel like it, from pushing forward when no one was watching, from choosing growth over comfort again and again. That is what allows you to attract women on a deeper level, because what she sees in you is not just success, it's consistency. You are not guessing your way through life. You are building it, brick by brick, decision by decision. And here's the truth most men miss. Younger women are not just looking for excitement. They are looking for clarity, for direction, for someone who doesn't hesitate when life gets uncertain. A self-made man provides that without needing to say it. Your past speaks for you. Your standards speak for you. Your calm decisions speak for you. Don't try to compete with younger men on energy. Compete on depth. That is where you win. That is where you separate yourself. Your confidence isn't loud. It doesn't need applause. It's built on evidence, on knowing what you've overcome, on trusting your ability to handle what comes next. That is the kind of confidence that creates attraction without effort. That is masculine energy at its peak. You walk into a room and you don't seek attention, you command respect. Not because you demand it, but because you embody it. Be the man who has done the work, not the man who talks about it. Be the man who chooses discipline over distraction. Be the man who builds, protects, and leads by example. That is what defines a high-value man. And when you operate from that place, you don't chase women, you naturally attract women who are drawn to strength, stability, and purpose. Remember this, mystery may spark curiosity, but substance builds desire. And you, as a self-made man, are not just a moment of excitement, you are a future she can believe in. 6. The reliable partner. Understand this clearly. What truly attracts a woman is not surface-level charm, not fleeting humor, not appearances that fade with time. It is reliability. It is the man who stands firm when others disappear. The man who does what he says every time. In today's world, where people cancel plans without a second thought, where attention is scattered and commitment is rare, your ability to be consistent becomes your greatest advantage. It sets you apart immediately. It speaks before you even say a word. As Tony Robbins once said, the secret to success is consistency of purpose. And that applies not only to success in business, but success in relationships. You must understand this deeply. Reliability is not boring, it is powerful. It is magnetic. It creates emotional safety, and emotional safety creates attraction that lasts far longer than excitement alone. When you show up on time, when you follow through, when your words match your actions, you send a message that cannot be faked. You are grounded, you are stable, you are a man she can build with. That is rare. That is valuable. That is what modern life has made scarce. And scarcity creates desire. You must train yourself to become this man deliberately. This is where old Stoic wisdom comes in. The Stoics did not chase approval. They built character. They focused on what they could control, their actions, their discipline, their integrity. And that is exactly what you must do. You must develop what I call an iron mind, a mind that does not break under pressure, a mind that does not make excuses, a mind that follows through regardless of mood. Because let's be honest, anyone can be reliable when it's easy. Anyone can show up when they feel like it. But the man who wins, the man who lives Stoicism win, is the one who shows up when it's inconvenient, when it's uncomfortable, when no one is watching. That is the difference. That is where respect is built. That is where attraction deepens. In relationships, reliability translates into trust. And trust is everything. Without it, nothing grows. With it, everything becomes possible. When she knows you are consistent, she relaxes. She opens up. She invests emotionally. Why? Because she no longer has to question your intentions. She no longer has to wonder if you will disappear tomorrow. You become her certainty in an uncertain world. And that certainty is incredibly attractive. As Stephen Covey said, trust is the glue of life. Without it, there is no real connection. Without it, attraction fades quickly. But with it, even simple moments become meaningful. Even silence becomes comfortable. Now listen carefully. Reliability is not about being perfect. It is about being consistent. It is about doing the small things right over and over again. Calling when you said you would. Showing up when you promised. Being emotionally steady instead of unpredictable. These are simple actions, but they compound over time. They build a reputation. And reputation is everything. In a world driven by instant gratification, the man who plays the long game wins. Always. That is Stoicism win in action. That is old Stoic wisdom applied to modern relationships. You must also understand that reliability reflects self-respect. A man who keeps his word to others is a man who keeps his word to himself. And that is where true confidence comes from. Not from external validation, not from attention, but from knowing, deep inside, that you are a man of discipline and integrity. That is an iron mind. That is unshakable. And women feel that. They may not always explain it logically, but they feel it emotionally. They feel safe. They feel grounded. They feel drawn to you without fully understanding why. That is the power of consistency. That is the power of reliability. Modern life will try to distract you. It will tempt you to chase excitement, to prioritize short-term pleasure over long-term respect. Don't fall into that trap. Be the man who is steady. Be the man who is dependable. Be the man who does not need to prove anything because his actions speak for him. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. That is your instruction. Not theory. Not talk. Action. And here is the truth most men overlook. Reliability does not make you predictable in a negative way. It makes you trustworthy in a powerful way. There is a difference. Predictability without depth is boring. But consistency with strength, with purpose, with direction, that creates attraction that grows stronger over time. It creates a foundation. And once that foundation is built, everything else becomes easier. Communication improves. Connection deepens. Respect becomes mutual. So take this seriously. Make reliability your standard. Not occasionally. Not when it's convenient. Always. Build your life on old Stoic wisdom. Train your mind into an iron mind. Live in a way that reflects Stoicism win every single day. Show up. Follow through. Stay consistent. Again and again. Because in the end, the man who can be counted on is the man who stands out. The man who stands out is the man who attracts. And the man who attracts through reliability is the man who keeps what he earns. If this message resonates with you, don't just listen, act on it. Step into the rare space where consistency defines you, where your word carries weight, where your presence brings certainty in an uncertain world. Most men talk. Few follow through. Be the one who does. Show up. Stay steady. Build trust through action, not promises. And if you're ready to become that man, drop this in the comments right now. I am the man who shows up and never breaks his word. 7. The gentleman. The gentleman is not a performance. It is a standard you live by every single day. Respect, kindness, emotional maturity. That is the foundation. That is the difference. In a world where many men try to impress, you choose to express character instead. You don't chase attention. You don't force attraction. You understand something deeper. Real connection is built through consistency, not intensity. This is where psychology tricks and female psychology quietly align. Women don't fall for noise, they fall for presence. They observe how you treat people when there is nothing to gain. They notice how you respond under pressure. You must understand this. How to fall in love is not about sparks, it is about safety. It is about how she feels when she is around you. Do you create tension or do you create peace? That is the question every man must answer. A true gentleman listens more than he speaks, not to impress, but to understand. That is power. Don't interrupt. Don't rush. Be fully present. Because in female psychology, being heard is being valued. And when a woman feels valued, she opens up naturally. That is how to fall in love without forcing anything. You create space. You allow connection to grow at its own pace. No pressure. No games. Just clarity. That is rare. And rarity creates attraction without effort. Kindness is not weakness. It is discipline. It is choosing calm when others choose chaos. It is choosing patience when others react. You don't raise your voice to be heard. You don't create drama to feel important. You remain steady, grounded, in control of yourself. This is one of the most overlooked psychology tricks. Emotional stability is deeply attractive because it signals safety. And safety is what allows attraction to turn into something deeper. That is how to fall in love in a real, lasting way. You must also understand this. Small actions carry more weight than grand gestures. Anyone can plan something big once. Few can show up consistently. A message at the right time. A calm response during conflict. A simple act of consideration. These are the moments that build trust. And trust is the bridge between interest and emotional connection. In female psychology, trust is everything. Without it, nothing grows. With it, everything becomes possible. Don't compete with other men. That is a losing game. Be different instead. Be the man who brings calm into her life. Be the one who doesn't need validation because he already knows his value. That is the quiet confidence of a gentleman. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. It simply exists. And people feel it, especially women who are tired of inconsistency and emotional confusion. You become the contrast. And contrast creates attraction naturally. Peace is your advantage. Never forget that. In a world full of unpredictability, your steadiness becomes magnetic. She doesn't have to guess where she stands with you. She doesn't have to decode your behavior. You are clear. You are direct. You are consistent. These are not just traits, they are psychology tricks rooted in human nature. People are drawn to what feels safe, certain, and real. And that is exactly what you offer. So don't try to impress. Don't try to entertain. Don't try to be someone you are not. Be the gentleman. Be respectful. Be calm. Be intentional. That is how to fall in love the right way. Not through manipulation, but through presence. Not through pressure, but through peace. And when you master this, you won't need to chase attraction anymore. It will come to you, quietly, naturally, and with a depth that most men will never experience. 8. The adventurous spirit. Experience creates attraction. Not theory, not talk. Experience. That is what separates a boy from a man, and more importantly, what separates an ordinary man from a high-value man. You've lived. You've stepped outside comfort. You've seen places others only scroll past on their phones. You've walked unfamiliar streets, tasted different cultures, faced moments where you had to rely on your instincts. That matters. That builds presence. And presence is what helps you naturally attract women without forcing anything. Understand this clearly. Women are not just drawn to what you say, they are drawn to what you have lived. Don't try to impress her with words. Show her a life. Be the man whose stories come from real moments, not rehearsed lines. When you talk about a place, you don't just describe it, you feel it again. The sounds, the energy, the lessons. That is what pulls her in. That is what sparks curiosity. That is what makes her lean closer, not because you demand attention, but because your life already commands it. You must become the man who turns ordinary moments into meaningful experiences. A simple walk becomes a story. A short trip becomes a memory. A conversation becomes a journey. That is the power of an adventurous spirit. It's not about money. It's not about luxury. It's about perspective. It's about how you see the world and how you invite her to see it through your eyes. To her, being with you is not just going somewhere. It's stepping into something deeper, something alive, something unpredictable in the best way. You are not just a companion filling space. You are a guide who opens doors, a protector who creates safety in unfamiliar places, a storyteller who turns life into meaning. And that combination? That is rare. That is magnetic. That is masculine energy expressed through action, not noise. Don't be the man who hesitates. Don't be the man who always waits for the right time. There is no perfect moment. There is only movement. Be decisive. Be curious. Be willing to explore, even if it's just a new cafe, a new city, or a new way of thinking. Because adventure is not only about geography, it's about mindset. A man with masculine energy does not need the world to change before he acts. He brings energy into whatever space he enters. And here's the deeper truth most men overlook: adventure builds emotional connection faster than comfort ever will. Why? Because shared experiences create shared emotions. When she experiences something new with you, something slightly outside her routine, her mind associates that feeling with you. Excitement becomes linked to your presence. Safety becomes linked to your leadership. Curiosity becomes linked to your direction. That is how a bond forms without force. Be that man. Not loud, not trying too hard, just grounded, experienced, and open to life. A high-value man doesn't chase excitement, he creates it. He doesn't wait for life to entertain him, he engages with it fully. And in doing so, he naturally attracts women who crave depth, who crave meaning, who crave a man who can show them more than just attention. He shows them a world. Remember this: people forget words, but they never forget how they felt. So give her something to feel. Give her moments she didn't expect. Give her stories she will replay in her mind long after. That is how you stand out. That is how you build connection. That is how your masculine energy speaks without ever needing to raise its voice. If this message speaks to you, don't just scroll past it. Take a moment. Let it sink in. Because a man with an adventurous spirit doesn't just live life. He creates moments that people never forget. He brings depth, excitement, and meaning into every experience. Like the video, share it with someone who needs this reminder, and subscribe for more insights that sharpen your edge. Now comment this to lock it into your mindset: I create experiences, not just moments. I am the journey. 9. The mentor figure. The mentor figure is not about age, it is about presence, depth, and earned clarity. Think about this carefully. Have you ever noticed how a younger woman becomes more attentive when a man speaks with calm certainty, when his words carry weight, when his silence itself feels meaningful? That is not coincidence. That is the quiet authority of experience. As Marcus Aurelius once reminded us, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. That is the essence here. You are not performing. You are not trying to impress. You are simply expressing a life that has been lived, tested, and understood. And that, more than anything else, creates attraction. A younger woman does not just look at you and see years. She feels the storms you've survived, the lessons you've absorbed, the discipline you've built. She senses stability. She senses direction. She senses that you are not lost, and in a world where many people are still searching, that alone makes you rare. Understand this clearly. She is not drawn to perfection. She is drawn to clarity. She is drawn to a man who knows what he believes, who stands firm without needing validation, who can explain life not with theory, but with lived truth. This is where old Stoic wisdom becomes your greatest advantage. Stoicism win is not about detachment from life. It is about mastering it. It is about developing an iron mind that does not break under pressure, that does not react impulsively, that does not crumble in uncertainty. When you speak from that place, your words carry something deeper than information. They carry conviction. And conviction is magnetic. A mentor figure does not dominate conversations. He does not rush to prove himself. He listens. He observes. He responds with intention. That is what makes her lean in. That is what makes her feel seen. In modern life, where distractions are constant and attention is fragmented, this kind of presence is powerful. Most people are talking, few are truly listening. Most people are reacting, few are truly understanding. You must be different. You must be the man who slows down the moment, who brings focus, who creates a space where she feels safe to open up. Because safety is not created through control, it is created through calm strength. And here is the deeper psychological truth. Younger women are often navigating confusion about identity, about purpose, about relationships. They are surrounded by noise, opinions, expectations, contradictions. When you step into that space as a man who has already walked through that chaos and come out grounded, you become a reference point. Not because you claim authority, but because you embody it. This is why the mentor figure is unforgettable. You are not just another experience in her life. You become a turning point, a moment of clarity, a standard she begins to measure other men against. But listen carefully, this only works if it is real. You cannot fake depth. You cannot pretend wisdom. People feel authenticity instantly. If your confidence is built on ego, it will collapse. If your words are empty, they will fade. But if your mindset is rooted in old Stoic wisdom, if you truly practice Stoicism when in your daily life, if you cultivate an iron mind through discipline, reflection, and responsibility, then your presence will naturally command respect without effort. That is the difference. You don't chase attention. Attention comes to you. As Seneca said, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. Your life experience is your preparation. Every mistake, every challenge, every lesson, it has been shaping you into this man. So don't downplay it. Don't hide it. Use it. Share it wisely. Guide, don't preach. Lead, don't control. Teach, don't impose. That is the balance. And in today's world, this role is more valuable than ever. Social media, fast dating, instant gratification, they have created a culture where depth is rare. People move quickly, but they don't connect deeply. You must slow things down. You must bring substance back into the interaction. When she asks you a question, don't give a surface answer. Give her something that makes her think. Something that stays with her after the conversation ends. That is how you build influence. That is how you build attraction that lasts. Remember this, a mentor figure does not try to be liked. He focuses on being respected. And respect naturally evolves into attraction. You don't need to entertain. You don't need to impress. You need to be consistent. Consistent in your values. Consistent in your actions. Consistent in your mindset. That consistency builds trust. And trust is the foundation of any meaningful connection. So be that man. Be the man who has done the inner work. Be the man who has faced himself honestly. Be the man who has built an iron mind through discipline and reflection. Practice old Stoic wisdom daily. Live Stoicism win, not just as an idea, but as a lifestyle. Speak less, but speak with purpose. Move calmly, but with certainty. Stand firm, but without arrogance. That is power. Quiet power. Lasting power. Because at the end of the day, she is not searching for someone flawless. She is searching for someone grounded. Someone who can help her see clearly when things feel uncertain. Someone who does not get lost when life becomes difficult. Someone who can guide without controlling, who can support without depending, who can lead without forcing. That man is rare. That man is remembered. And that man is the mentor figure. 10. The man with purpose. The man with purpose is not loud, not flashy, not desperate for attention. He is steady, clear, and deeply grounded in where he is going, and that alone creates a quiet but undeniable pull that many overlook, yet few can resist. You must understand this. Attraction at a deeper level is not built on surface charm. It is built on direction, on meaning, on a sense that this man is moving somewhere with intention, and that is where psychology tricks, female psychology, and how to fall in love begin to intertwine in a powerful way. A man without purpose drifts, reacts, hesitates. A man with purpose decides, moves, and builds, and that difference is felt instantly, without a single word being spoken. Don't be the man who wakes up without a plan, who fills his days with distractions, who hopes things will somehow work out, because hope without direction creates confusion, and confusion quietly erodes attraction. Be the man who wakes up knowing exactly what matters, what he is building, what he refuses to compromise on, because that clarity sends a signal, strong, calm, and unshakable, that you are not here to waste time. You are here to create something meaningful. That is what female psychology responds to at a deep level, not because it is logical, but because it feels safe, it feels real, it feels like something that can last. When a younger woman observes you, she is not just listening to what you say, she is watching how you live, how you spend your time, how you handle pressure, how you move through life, and if she sees hesitation, inconsistency, or lack of direction, her interest fades quietly. But if she sees focus, discipline, and a man who is building something step by step, she leans in, often without even realizing why, because how to fall in love is often less about words and more about the silent signals of stability and vision. You must build that vision. You must commit to it, and you must protect it because purpose is not something you claim, it is something you demonstrate daily through your actions. Don't chase validation. Don't chase approval. Don't chase temporary excitement because those things distract you from your path and weaken your presence. Instead, chase progress, chase growth, chase the long-term mission that gives your life structure and meaning. Because a man on a mission becomes naturally attractive without trying, and that is one of the most overlooked psychology tricks. You don't focus on attraction, yet you become attractive. Think about it carefully. A man who is building his life is not waiting for someone to complete him. He is already complete in his direction, and that creates a powerful dynamic where a woman doesn't feel pressure. She feels invited into something already meaningful, something already moving forward, and that is where female psychology responds with curiosity, respect, and eventually emotional connection. You must understand, people are drawn to momentum, not stagnation, and when you have purpose, you carry momentum in your decisions, in your energy, in your presence, and that momentum becomes contagious. It pulls others into your world because it feels alive, it feels certain, it feels worth being part of. Don't explain your purpose too much. Don't try to convince anyone of your value because true purpose doesn't need constant explanation. It shows itself in how you prioritize your time, how you handle challenges, how you stay consistent even when no one is watching, and that consistency builds trust, and trust is one of the core elements in how to fall in love. A woman doesn't fall for potential alone. She falls for what she can see, feel, and rely on, and when she sees a man who is not escaping life, but actively building it, she begins to imagine herself within that structure, within that future. And that is where attraction deepens into something more meaningful. You must be careful, though. Purpose is not about being busy. It is not about filling your schedule with random tasks. It is about alignment, knowing what truly matters and focusing your energy there with discipline and patience. Because scattered effort creates scattered results, but focused effort creates progress that can be seen and felt. When you live like this, you don't need to impress. You don't need to perform. You don't need to chase, because your life itself becomes the message, and that is one of the most effective psychology tricks. You let your reality speak instead of your words. Female psychology is highly attuned to authenticity, and authenticity cannot be faked over time. It reveals itself through patterns, through habits, through consistency, and that is why purpose must be real, not something you pretend to have, but something you actively live every day. Don't wait for motivation. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait for someone to push you, because purpose is built through action, not through waiting, and the more you act, the clearer your direction becomes, and the clearer your direction, the stronger your presence. Remember this, attraction is not created in a single moment. It is built through repeated signals of stability, clarity, and forward movement. And when a woman sees that you are not lost, not confused, not drifting, but moving with intention, she begins to trust that being with you means moving forward, not standing still. That is powerful. That is rare, and that is why the man with purpose stands out without trying, because in a world full of distraction and uncertainty, clarity becomes magnetic. So be that man, not for approval, not for attraction, but because it is the only way to live with strength and meaning, and as a result, attraction will follow naturally, quietly, and deeply, because when you build a life with direction, you don't just attract attention, you attract the right kind of connection, the kind that grows, the kind that lasts, the kind that aligns with everything you are building. All right, my friend, if you've stayed with me until this moment, you're already different from most men out there. You're thinking deeper. You're choosing to grow. Here's the truth you need to carry with you. You don't have to become someone else to attract the right woman. Don't chase a new identity. Don't pretend. Be more of who you already are. Every scar, every lesson, every struggle you've been through, that's not a weakness. That's your value. That's your edge. Your age is not something to hide. It's something to stand on. It gives you calm. It gives you clarity. It gives you presence, the kind of presence that can't be faked, the kind that people feel the moment you walk into a room. So don't shrink yourself. Don't doubt your worth. Stand tall. Speak less, but mean more. Move with intention. That is what creates attraction. Not perfection. Not trying too hard. Just grounded confidence and real depth. And here's my honest advice to you. Stop focusing on being liked and start focusing on being solid. Build your life. Protect your peace. Stay consistent in who you are. The right people, especially the right woman, will feel that and they will come naturally. Take that with you. Live it. And I'll see you in the next video. The one place she lets you touch, it reveals everything. Psychology tricks. Most men misread attraction because they focus on words, on what she says, how she sounds, or how clearly she expresses interest. They search for obvious signals, something they can label and control. But attraction doesn't begin there. By the time she explains anything with words, the moment has already passed. Real attraction reveals itself through access, through what she allows before she ever explains it. As Maya Angelou once said, people will forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And that is exactly the point. A woman's body responds differently when trust begins to form, when she feels safe, when something deeper starts to open. This process is not random. It follows a quiet, precise pattern. Every part of her body carries a different emotional weight. Some areas are casual, almost automatic. Others are instinctively protected. And then there are fewer places she does not offer unless something inside her has already shifted. Not politeness, not surface-level comfort, but genuine openness. When she allows access there, it is no longer just physical, it is psychological. Her guard is lowering. Her nervous system is choosing you before her mind even puts it into words. Most men fail because they treat all touches equal. They assume closeness always means attraction, so they either rush forward blindly or hesitate at the exact moment they should be aware. And both cost them. Because this is not about forcing connection, it's about recognizing what is already being given. When you learn to read where she allows you in and how she responds in that moment, everything becomes clear. You stop guessing. You stop overthinking. You stop relying on what she says and start understanding what she is already showing. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Every interaction begins to make sense. You recognize the difference between politeness, comfort, and genuine emotional opening, the stage most men completely overlook. This is what you're about to understand step by step, not tricks, not manipulation, but real human psychology. Because once you see it clearly, you're no longer chasing answers, you're simply reading the truth that has been there all along. 1. Most men rely almost entirely on words. Most men make the same quiet mistake over and over again without even realizing it. They rely almost entirely on words, and that is where everything begins to slip out of their control. They listen carefully to what a woman says. They analyze how fast she replies. They measure her tone, her emojis, her friendliness, and they build their entire understanding of attraction on that fragile foundation. Don't do that. Words are the most polished, filtered, and controlled part of any interaction. A woman can sound warm and still feel nothing. She can be polite and still not be interested. She can even seem distant while something deeper is quietly building beneath the surface. That is the paradox of female psychology, and if you don't understand it, you will constantly misread situations and confuse politeness for desire. Be aware of this. Behavior reveals what words hide. Her body does not lie the way language can. The way she positions herself, the subtle shifts in distance, the ease or tension in her posture, these are not random details, they are signals. Real signals. And this is where most men fail to see what's right in front of them. They treat every touch as equal, as if all physical contact carries the same meaning, but it doesn't. To you, touching her arm, brushing her hand, or guiding her lightly by the back may seem like small variations of the same action. But to her, each one represents a different level of emotional access, a different stage in trust. That is how to fall in love properly, by understanding the progression, not forcing the moment. You must recognize that every level of closeness is earned, not taken. And when you ignore that, you start misreading everything. You assume interest when she's simply being courteous. You hesitate when she's actually inviting deeper connection. That is the danger of not understanding these psychology tricks and the deeper layers of female psychology. Now listen carefully, because this is where clarity changes everything. It's not about what you do, it's about how she responds. Too many men focus on the action. I touched her hand, so that must mean something. No, that is not the point. The real meaning is always in her reaction. Does she stay relaxed, or does her body tighten slightly? Does she lean in, or does she subtly create space again? Does the moment flow naturally, or does it feel interrupted, almost corrected? These are the answers you've been missing. Attraction is not in the act itself. It is in how the act is received. That is a fundamental truth of female psychology, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. But there's another layer, one that separates those who understand from those who keep guessing. Your intention, your mindset. If you approach touch like a calculated move, like a step in some hidden playbook of psychology tricks, she will feel it instantly. Don't underestimate this. Women don't just feel your touch, they feel the intention behind it. They sense whether it's natural, calm, and grounded, or forced, hesitant, and seeking validation. The exact same gesture, done by two different men, can create two completely different emotional responses. That is why technique alone will never be enough. You must be present. You must be grounded. You must observe instead of trying to control. Because when you stop forcing outcomes, something powerful happens. Patterns begin to reveal themselves. You start to notice that physical closeness is not random. It follows a quiet, structured progression, one that reflects how much trust she is building with you moment by moment. And this is where everything shifts. This is where you move from guessing to understanding, from reacting to reading the situation with clarity. That is how to fall in love the right way, not through pressure, not through tricks, but through awareness. So don't rush. Don't assume. Don't cling to words as your only guide. Be observant. Be patient. Be present. Because once you truly understand these psychology tricks and the depth of female psychology, you stop chasing signals and you start recognizing them naturally. And that is when connection becomes effortless, real, and deeply meaningful. 2. Touch is not just physical, it's psychological. Touch is not just physical, it is psychological. That is the first truth you must understand if you want to move through the world as a high-value man who can truly attract women without confusion or guesswork. Most men treat touch like an action, a move, a technique. Don't make that mistake. Be sharper than that. Because the moment your hand meets her skin, something far deeper is already happening beneath the surface. Her mind is not asking, "Where did he touch me?" It is asking, "Who is this man, really?" And it answers instantly. No delay, no second chances. When you touch a woman, her brain scans everything at once. Your intention, your emotional state, your level of certainty, your presence, your masculine energy. It reads what you feel about yourself before it even considers what you feel about her. That is why two men can perform the exact same gesture and receive completely different reactions. One man gently places his hand on her arm, and she softens. She stays. She leans in. There is ease. There is openness. Another man does the same thing, same place, same pressure, and yet she pulls away. She adjusts. She creates distance without saying a word. Don't ignore that difference. Study it, because the difference is everything. It is not about the touch. It is about what lives behind the touch. That is what her nervous system is responding to. And her nervous system does not lie. It is always scanning, always evaluating. Is this man calm or tense? Is he grounded or seeking approval? Is this natural or forced? Is he present or performing? You cannot fake these answers. Not in that moment. Not through physical contact. Words can be rehearsed. Expressions can be controlled. But touch? Touch reveals truth. It strips away the mask. That is why a man who lacks inner stability will always feel off, even if he says all the right things. And a man who is aligned within himself will feel right, even in silence. So don't focus on technique. Focus on state. Be steady. Be intentional. Be real. That is what allows a high-value man to naturally attract women without chasing validation. Because what she feels is not your hand. It is your certainty. It is your calm. It is your presence. Now, go deeper. Because understanding this alone is not enough. You must also understand that a woman does not give access to her body all at once. That is not how trust works. That is not how attraction unfolds. She gives access in levels. Slowly, gradually, and always based on how she feels around you. Not what you say, not what you promise, what she feels. At the beginning, the access is minimal. Neutral areas, low emotional weight, a brief touch on the arm, a casual brush on the shoulder. These are safe zones. Don't rush past them. Don't underestimate them. These small moments are not insignificant. They're tests, quiet ones, subtle ones, but powerful. Because in these early stages, she is not deciding if she likes you. She is deciding if she feels comfortable with you. That is a different question. And comfort always comes before attraction can deepen. As her comfort grows, something shifts. Not dramatically, not loudly, quietly, naturally. She begins to allow more proximity, more ease, more presence. And here is where most men fail. They try to jump ahead. They try to accelerate the process. Don't do that. You must respect the pace of trust. Because the moment you try to skip levels, her body will respond instantly. It will close. It will withdraw. And once that happens, you are no longer building connection. You are repairing damage. So be patient. That is strength, not hesitation. Strength. Allow the interaction to unfold step by step. Let her come toward you as much as you move toward her. That balance is critical. That is how a man with grounded masculine energy operates. He does not chase. He does not force. He creates space. And within that space, attraction grows on its own. Now understand this clearly. Her body is a map of trust. Some areas are open, easy, accessible. Others are guarded, and a few are deeply protected. These protected areas are not about physical sensitivity. They're about emotional meaning. They represent vulnerability, connection, depth. She does not allow access there unless something inside her has changed. Unless she feels safe, seen, understood. Unless she begins to see you differently from every other man she has encountered. That is the shift you are looking for. Not permission, not signals. A shift. Because when that shift happens, her behavior changes in subtle but undeniable ways. She stays closer. She responds with warmth. Her body becomes more relaxed around you. Not because you asked. Not because you pushed. Because she chose. So stop asking yourself, did she let me touch her? That is the wrong question. Ask instead, where did she allow access and how did she respond? That is where the truth lives. That is where the real information is. Because attraction is not announced. It is revealed. Quietly. Through behavior. Through openness. Through the way she allows you into her space. And here's something most men never fully grasp. This entire progression depends just as much on you as it does on her. Maybe more. Your presence sets the tone. Your behavior creates the environment. Your emotional control determines whether she feels safe or uncertain. If you are rushed, she will feel pressure. If you are unsure, she will feel instability. If you are grounded, she will feel calm. That is the power of a man who understands himself. So don't try to impress. Don't try to prove. Don't try to win her over through effort. Be the man who is already centered, already at ease, already complete. That is what defines a high-value man. And that is what naturally allows you to attract women without manipulation or strategy. Let things build. Step by step. Let trust develop without interference. Because when a woman opens up naturally, the signals become clearer. Not louder. Clearer. More meaningful. More consistent. And at that point, you're no longer guessing. You are simply observing what is already unfolding. That is the difference between confusion and clarity. between chasing and attracting, between reacting and leading. So remember this. Touch is not something you do. It is something you reveal. It reveals who you are. It reveals how you feel. It reveals whether you are aligned or uncertain. And a woman will always respond to that truth before anything else. Be calm. Be patient. Be grounded. Let your masculine energy speak before your words ever do. Because in the end, it is not about where you touch. It is about what she feels when you do. And that tells you everything. If you truly understand this, then you already know it's not about what you do. It's about who you are in that moment. Presence over pressure. Calm over control. That's what creates real connection. So don't just watch, apply it. And if this hit you, drop this in the comments right now. I move with calm and I earn trust without force. Like the video, subscribe for more sharp insight, and remember, real power isn't loud, it's felt. 3. Think of her body as a map. Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth, Marcus Aurelius. Hold on to that, because if you truly understand it, you stop reacting blindly and start seeing clearly, and that is where your power begins. Now listen carefully. Think of her body as a map, not a physical map, but an emotional one, a living system that reflects trust, comfort, and openness in real time. This is not random. This is not chaotic. This is structured, predictable, governed by patterns that most men never slow down enough to observe. And that is why they remain confused. They chase signals. They misread moments. They assume too much. Don't do that. Be precise. Be aware. Be the man who understands the system. Because once you do, everything changes. You stop guessing. You start knowing. You move with clarity, not hesitation. That is the foundation of an iron mind, and that is how Stoicism becomes real in your life. Now understand this deeply. Every area of her body represents a level of emotional access. Some areas are neutral, open, casual. These are spaces where touch carries little meaning. A tap on the arm, a friendly pat on the shoulder. This is social. This is polite. This is safe. Do not confuse it with attraction. Most men fail right here. They see a small opening and imagine a bigger door. That is a mistake. Don't project your desires onto neutral signals. Observe. Stay grounded. As old Stoic wisdom teaches, you must control your interpretation, not be controlled by it. Then comes the next level, the connection zones. This is where things begin to shift. Subtly, quietly, she becomes more comfortable, more engaged. The energy changes. There is a slight warmth now, a little more presence, a little more ease. This is not accidental. This is a response to how she feels around you. Your tone, your calmness, your consistency. This is where your masculine energy must remain steady. Not forced, not performative, just grounded. Because women don't respond to words as much as they respond to how you make them feel. And as Maya Angelou said, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Burn that into your mind. Now we move deeper into the trust zones. This is where things become real. This is no longer casual. This is not surface-level interaction. This is where her body begins to reflect a deeper decision. She feels safe with you. Not completely, not fully, but enough to allow closeness she doesn't give freely. And understand this, safety is everything. Not excitement, not charm. Safety, emotional safety, psychological safety. If she feels that with you, doors open naturally. If she doesn't, nothing you do will force it. This is where most men try to push. Don't. Never rush what must be built. Patience is power. Discipline is power. That is Stoicism in action. You stay calm. You stay present. You let her come to you at her pace. Because forcing movement only creates resistance. But allowing space creates attraction. And finally, the most important level, the vulnerable zones. These are not just physically sensitive areas. These are emotionally guarded spaces. Deeply personal. Deeply protected. Access here is never random. never casual. If she allows you into this level, something has shifted inside her. Completely. She is no longer evaluating you from a distance. She is no longer deciding if she likes you. She is letting you in. That is a different game entirely. That is where connection becomes real. But listen carefully, you don't earn access here by trying to get there. You earn it by being the man who doesn't need to rush it. The man who is centered. The man who is calm under pressure. The man who understands that real connection is built, not taken. This is the mindset of an iron mind. This is the application of old Stoic wisdom in modern relationships. You don't chase outcomes. You focus on presence. You don't force results. You build value. And here is the key principle you must never forget. You do not move through these levels by action alone. You move through them by how she feels in your presence. That is it. If she feels relaxed, she opens. If she feels tension, she closes. Simple, clear, no confusion. So your job is not to do more. Your job is to be better, more grounded, more aware, more in control of yourself. Because when you control yourself, you influence the environment. And when you influence the environment, you influence how she feels. That is real power. That is real attraction. And this is where modern life trips men up. Too much noise, too many distractions, too much pressure to perform, impress, prove. Forget that. Strip it down. Go back to fundamentals. Presence, calmness, awareness. That is your edge. That is what separates you. Because while other men are overthinking, you're observing. While they are reacting, you're understanding. While they are chasing, you're attracting. That is Stoicism win. That is how you master the moment. So here is your instruction. Be aware of the level you are in. Don't assume. Don't rush. Don't skip steps. Let the interaction unfold naturally. Read the map. Respect the map. Move with patience. Move with intention. Because when you do, everything aligns. You stop second-guessing. You stop forcing outcomes. You start leading the interaction without saying a word. And that is where confidence becomes silent, but undeniable. Remember what Epictetus taught. No man is free who is not master of himself. Master yourself first. Master your reactions. Master your interpretations. Build that iron mind. Because when you do, you don't just understand attraction, you control your experience of it. And that is how you win. 4. Let's start with the level that confuses most men, the neutral zone. Let's begin where most men lose clarity, the so-called neutral zone, because if you don't understand this level, every move you make afterward becomes guesswork instead of intention. This is where psychology tricks and real awareness of female psychology separate a man who reacts from a man who understands, and you must see it clearly. Areas like the arms, shoulders, and upper back carry little emotional weight. They are socially acceptable, everyday points of contact, and that is exactly why they are dangerous if misread, because they feel meaningful when they are not. They feel like progress when they are simply permission to exist in the same space. A woman may let you touch her arm during conversation. She may not pull away from a brief touch on her shoulder. She may even initiate light contact herself, and in that moment, many men rush to conclusions. They tell themselves a story, they assume attraction, they start imagining how to fall in love unfolding right in front of them. But stop, don't do that, because most of the time, nothing deeper is happening. This level of touch is safe, casual, low risk. It requires no emotional investment from her, and that is the key insight you must hold on to. As the saying goes, we see the world not as it is, but as we are. If you are hungry for validation, you will turn neutrality into desire. You will turn comfort into attraction, and that is where mistakes begin. Understand this. Neutral touch is not meaningless, but it is foundational. It simply tells you she is not uncomfortable. It tells you she is open to interaction. It tells you are not being rejected, but that is all, nothing more, nothing less. You must discipline your mind to accept that reality without adding fantasy on top of it. This is where mastering female psychology becomes essential, because a woman's comfort does not equal her interest, her politeness does not equal her attraction, and her openness does not equal her emotional investment. If you confuse these signals, you will move too fast, you will push too soon, and you will quietly destroy the connection before it ever has a chance to grow. Be patient. Be aware. Be grounded. That is the rule. Because the moment you treat neutral touch like a green light, you step out of alignment with reality. You begin to act based on assumption rather than observation, and that shift is subtle but powerful. It changes your tone, your timing, your energy, and she will feel it instantly. This is why psychology tricks are not about manipulation. They're about perception, about reading what is actually there instead of what you wish was there. At this stage, what you need to focus on is not the touch itself, but the environment around it, her body language, her consistency, her emotional presence. Ask yourself, does she stay engaged or does she drift away? Does she lean in or subtly create distance? Does she respond naturally or does it feel forced? Because the real signal here is not attraction, it is comfort, and comfort is only the beginning, not the destination. Think of it like building something real. You don't start with the roof, you start with the foundation, and if you rush that process, everything collapses. Relationships are no different, especially when you are trying to understand how to fall in love in a way that is grounded and lasting, rather than rushed and fragile. Now, here is where many men fail completely. They ignore discomfort, they overlook resistance, they justify it. They tell themselves she is shy or unsure. But don't ignore the signs. If she pulls away from neutral touch, if her body stiffens, if she consistently creates space, that is not a challenge to overcome. That is feedback to respect. Because without comfort, there is no progression. Without ease, there is no connection. And without trust, there is no depth. So don't push, don't force. Don't try to outmaneuver the situation. Instead, step back and recalibrate, because true confidence is not about advancing at all costs. It is about knowing when to pause. This is where deeper understanding of female psychology gives you an advantage, because you begin to see patterns instead of isolated moments. You begin to recognize that attraction is not built through isolated touches, but through consistent emotional experience, through how she feels around you over time, through the safety and presence you create without trying too hard. And once that comfort becomes consistent, once she relaxes fully, once her guard lowers naturally, something shifts, something subtle, but undeniable. She begins to allow a different kind of contact, one that carries meaning, one that involves a small but real level of trust, and that is the transition point. That is where interaction starts to move from neutral into personal, from surface into depth. But you cannot skip to that point. You cannot force it. You cannot fake it. You must earn it through patience, awareness, and emotional discipline. Remember this: attraction is not a moment, it is a process. It unfolds layer by layer, and every layer has its own rules, its own signals, its own pace. If you respect that process, if you stay grounded in reality, if you stop chasing signs and start reading patterns, you place yourself in a position of clarity, and clarity is power. Because a man who understands what is actually happening does not need to guess, does not need to rush, does not need to prove anything. He simply observes, adapts, and moves with precision. So don't rush the neutral zone. Don't misinterpret it. Don't turn it into something it is not. Instead, use it as it was meant to be used, as a checkpoint, as a signal of basic openness, as a quiet invitation to continue, nothing more. And when you master this level, when you truly understand it, you stop making the common mistakes, you stop sabotaging your own progress, and you begin to move differently, with intention, with awareness, with control. That is where real connection begins to form, not from assumption, not from urgency, but from understanding, patience, and the quiet confidence of a man who sees clearly. If you're serious about understanding attraction, then stop guessing and start observing, because not every touch means what you think it means. Most men rush, misread, and lose the moment before it even begins. Don't be that man. Be calm. Be aware. Be precise. Respect the stage you're in, and let things unfold naturally. If this hit you, take action now, like the video, subscribe for more sharp insights, and drop this in the comments to lock it in your mind. Neutral touch means comfort, not attraction. 5. Once a woman is consistently comfortable with you at a neutral level, the interaction doesn't just stay there. Once a woman is consistently comfortable with you at a neutral level, understand this clearly. The interaction will never stay frozen in that space. It will either move forward or it will quietly fade out. There is no middle ground. That is why you must pay attention. Because when it moves forward, it enters what we can call the connection and early trust zones. And this is where everything begins to reveal itself, not through words, but through behavior, through subtle permission, through access that is quietly given, not demanded. Don't ignore this shift. Be aware of it. That is where a high-value man separates himself from the average. He doesn't guess. He observes. He reads the moment. One of the first places this shift becomes visible is in the hands. It seems simple, almost too simple, but don't underestimate it. Holding hands is not neutral. It is not accidental. It carries emotional weight. When a woman allows you to hold her hand, she is not just allowing contact, she is allowing connection. Her hands are how she interacts with the world, how she expresses herself, how she maintains control. So when she places them in yours, even briefly, she is sharing that space. That matters. And again, it's not just about the action, it's about the feeling behind it. Does she hold on naturally? Does her grip feel soft and relaxed, or slightly tense and uncertain? Does she let go quickly, or does she linger just a second longer than necessary? Pay attention. These are not random details. These are signals. Small, quiet signals, but very real. And here is where many men lose control of the situation. They focus only on what happens, not how it happens. Don't do that. Be precise. Be intentional. A high-value man doesn't rush to conclusions. He studies the moment. He understands that attraction is not loud, it is subtle, layered, and often unconscious. If she initiates contact, even in a small way, that is not coincidence. That is comfort. That is interest beginning to form. And when you understand that, you begin to naturally attract women, not by force, but by awareness, by presence, by masculine energy that is calm and grounded. Then the interaction moves slightly deeper to the wrist. Now this is where things begin to shift more noticeably. The wrist is not a casual area. It is more exposed, more sensitive, less commonly touched without intention. So when she allows contact there without hesitation, it tells you something important. Her guard is lowering. Not completely, not fully, but enough to signal that she feels increasingly comfortable in your presence. And comfort at this stage is everything. Don't rush past it. Don't overlook it. Be patient. That is strength. That is masculine energy in its purest form, controlled, steady, and aware. Now we move into a level that changes everything, the waist and lower back. This is where many men make mistakes. Big ones. Because they misread the meaning, or they act too quickly, or they act without awareness. Don't be that man. Understand what this moment represents. When a woman allows you to place your hand on her lower back, especially in a guiding, protective, or a natural way, her body is making a decision about you in real time. And here's why. This is an area she cannot easily see. She cannot monitor it without turning around. So her response is instinctive, immediate, honest. If she remains relaxed, if she doesn't tense up, if she doesn't step away or adjust your hand, that means something powerful. It means her body accepted your presence in that space. Not out of politeness, not out of obligation, but out of comfort. And comfort at this level carries weight. It is no longer neutral. It is no longer surface-level interaction. It is the beginning of trust that is felt, not explained. But listen carefully, this does not automatically mean deep attraction. Don't jump ahead. Don't assume too much. That is where many men fail. They feel a small opening and they try to force it into something bigger. Don't do that. Be disciplined. This stage is not about pushing forward aggressively. It is about recognizing what is being offered. That is the difference between someone who struggles and someone who naturally attracts women. Because access is always given, not taken. Remember that. A high-value man understands that he doesn't need to force anything. He doesn't need to chase or overstep. He allows the interaction to unfold. He respects the pace. He reads the signals. And in doing so, he creates an environment where trust grows naturally. That is masculine energy. Quiet, confident, unshaken. Now here is another layer most men completely miss. At this stage, her reactions become more important than the actions themselves. What she does after the contact, that is the truth. If you place your hand on her lower back and she subtly leans in, if she stays relaxed, if she continues engaging with you without hesitation, that is a positive response. That is her body saying, I am comfortable here. You don't need words. You don't need confirmation. The signal is already there. But if she adjusts, if she steps away, if she creates even a small amount of distance after the contact, don't ignore that. Don't try to override it. Don't pretend it didn't happen. That is feedback. Clear, honest feedback. And you must respect it. Because a man who cannot read these moments will always struggle. He will either move too slowly and miss opportunities, or move too fast and close doors that were just beginning to open. So what should you do? Simple. Stay present. Stay aware. Don't force anything. Let the interaction breathe. Let her comfort guide the pace. Because this stage, this connection and early trust zone is where everything either deepens or disappears. And if you handle it correctly, something powerful begins to happen. Her trust grows. Not dramatically, not all at once, but steadily, quietly. And as that trust builds, the signals become clearer, stronger, more emotionally significant. At that point, you no longer need to guess. You no longer need to analyze every small detail, because the interaction begins to flow naturally. That is the goal. Not control, not pressure, but flow. So don't rush. Don't overthink. Don't try to force outcomes. Be the man who understands the process. Be the man who respects the moment. Be the man whose presence feels calm, grounded, and safe. Because that is what truly allows attraction to grow. And when you embody that, when your actions align with awareness, when your energy is steady and intentional, you won't need tricks. You won't need manipulation. You will naturally attract women because they will feel it. That is the difference. That is the standard. That is what you must become. 6. Once a woman moves past basic comfort and early trust, something much more significant begins to happen. Once a woman moves beyond basic comfort and early trust, everything shifts into a different dimension, and you must understand this with absolute clarity if you want to move through life as a grounded, centered man, because at this level, touch is no longer casual, it is no longer accidental, it becomes intentional, it becomes symbolic, it becomes a silent language that speaks louder than any words ever could. As Marcus Aurelius once reminded us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. That is exactly where most men fail. They try to control the situation instead of mastering themselves. But a man rooted in old Stoic wisdom knows that real influence comes from inner stillness, not outward force. When a woman allows you closer to her neck or her face, she is not just allowing proximity. She is revealing a shift in her internal world. She is signaling that her defenses are lowering, that her instincts are no longer warning her to pull away, and you must treat that moment with precision. Because the neck is one of the most vulnerable areas of the human body, biologically exposed, instinctively guarded, and emotionally sensitive. When she allows you near it without tension, without hesitation, without resistance, that is not small, that is not random, that is a message. And you must read it correctly. You must not rush. You must not assume. You must not try to take more than what is being given. As Seneca said, he who is brave is free. And bravery here does not mean bold action. It means disciplined restraint. It means having the strength to slow down when everything in you wants to speed up. It means staying calm when the moment becomes intense. This is where Stoicism win is truly tested, not in silence, not in theory, but in real human interaction where emotions are alive and unpredictable. Then comes the face, the most personal, the most direct, the most revealing space a human being has. Because the face is identity, the face is emotion, The face is truth. There is no mask when someone is that close. When a woman allows you into that space, when she does not pull back, when she does not create distance, when she remains present, that is not just comfort, that is connection. That is emotional openness. You must recognize that this is not something you earn through pressure. It is something you were given through trust. And that changes everything. Now you are no longer trying to attract. You are no longer trying to prove. You are now responsible for protecting the space that she has opened. And that is where an iron mind becomes essential. Because without control, without awareness, without discipline, you will ruin the very thing you are trying to build. You will move too fast, speak too much, act too soon, and in doing so, you will trigger the exact defense you thought you had already passed. Her body will respond instantly, not logically, not verbally, but instinctively. She will tense. She will pull back. She will create distance. And you will not even understand why. But the truth is simple. You broke the rhythm. You broke the safety. You broke the natural progression. This is why old Stoic wisdom teaches patience above all. Because patience is not passive, patience is power under control. Patience is the ability to hold the moment without trying to own it. When you apply this in modern life, in dating, in relationships, in every interaction, you begin to see a different result. You begin to notice that women respond not to force, but to presence, not to pressure, but to calm certainty. When you stay grounded, when you stay aware, when you do not try to rush the outcome, she continues to open, not because she has to, but because she chooses to. And that choice is everything. Because attraction built on choice is stable, it is real, it is sustainable. As Epictetus taught, no man is free who is not master of himself. In this context, mastery means emotional control. It means reading subtle signals. It means understanding that her relaxed breathing, her stillness, her slight leaning closer are not accidents. They are indicators. They are her nervous system telling you that you are safe, that you are accepted, that you are welcome in her space. When you recognize that, when you respect that, when you move with that instead of against it, you step into a completely different level of interaction, a level where things are no longer forced. They unfold naturally. This is where Stoicism win becomes real. Because you are no longer reacting, you are responding. You are no longer chasing, you are attracting through your presence, through your calm, through your iron mind. Remind yourself again and again, do not rush, do not force, do not assume. Be steady, be aware, be intentional. Because the moment you lose control of yourself, you lose control of the situation. And the moment you stay grounded, everything aligns, everything flows. Everything builds in the right direction. This is the difference between men who constantly struggle and men who move through life with quiet confidence. One reacts to moments, the other understands them. One tries to take, the other allows things to develop. When you live by old Stoic wisdom, when you strengthen your iron mind, when you apply these principles in real life, you begin to see that attraction is not something you chase. It is something you cultivate through discipline, awareness, and respect for the moment. And that is how you build something real, something lasting, something that goes beyond surface-level interaction into genuine connection. That is where everything truly begins. If you truly understand what this level means, then you already see the difference. This is no longer about attraction. It's about trust, emotional safety, and the quiet permission to step closer without force or fear. Most men rush here and lose everything. But the man who stays calm, present, and in control of himself is the one who builds something real. So if you're ready to move with patience, read her signals, and earn that deeper connection the right way, comment this below right now. I move with calm and I earn real trust. 7. Now we get to the part that most men either overlook or completely misunderstand. Now we arrive at the moment most men miss entirely, not because it is hidden, but because they never learned how to read it correctly. This is not just another step in the process. This is the signal, the quiet shift that tells you something inside her has already changed. And surprisingly, it is not where most men expect. It is her hair. At first glance, it feels ordinary, always visible, always present, easy to overlook. but do not underestimate it. In female psychology, her hair carries deep personal meaning. It is tied to identity, to femininity, to emotional expression. Watch closely and you will see it. She adjusts it when she feels uncertain. She plays with it when she's thinking. She uses it, often without realizing, as a way to manage her inner state. That is why this matters. Because when she allows you to touch her hair, she is not just allowing contact. She is allowing access. Access to something she normally controls herself. That is the shift. That is the difference between surface-level interaction and something deeper. Many psychology tricks try to teach you actions, but this is not about action. It is about awareness. You must pay attention to her response, because the truth is not in what you do. It is in how she reacts. If she pulls away, adjusts quickly, or creates distance, do not ignore that. That is her boundary speaking clearly. But if she leans in, if her head tilts slightly, if her eyes soften or close even for a second, that is not calculated. That is instinct. That is her nervous system saying she feels safe. And safety is the foundation of how to fall in love. Not pressure, not strategy. Safety. At that point, she is no longer analyzing you. She is feeling you. And feeling always comes before connection. Understand this deeply. Her hair is something she protects without thinking. She maintains it. She controls it. So when she lets go of that control, even briefly, it is not. It is trust. Real trust. And trust cannot be forced. Do not try to manufacture this moment. Do not rush it. Do not treat it like a technique from a list of psychology tricks. Be grounded. Be patient. Let the connection build naturally. Because if the foundation is not there, her body will reject it instantly. That is female psychology at work. Honest, immediate, unfiltered. But when everything is aligned, when comfort, trust, and emotional openness are already present, this moment will happen without effort. And when it does, you will not need words to explain it. You will see it. You will feel it. And you will understand that attraction is never about the action itself. It is always about her response to it. 8. Now, this is where most men completely get it wrong, even if they understand everything we've talked about so far. Now, this is where everything separates the man who guesses from the man who truly understands. Most men get this wrong, even after learning all the so-called rules. They focus on the action, not the reaction. They think, I touched her hair, so that must mean something. No, that is not how it works. The location matters. The level matters. But without reading her response, it means nothing. You must understand this. The real signal is never the touch itself. It's what happens immediately after. Her body tells the truth faster than her words ever will. Two men can reach the exact same moment, the same level of closeness, and walk away with completely different outcomes. One deepens the connection. The other destroys it. Why? Because one reads her and the other ignores her. Don't be the man who forces meaning onto his actions. Be the man who observes, who listens without needing words. That is masculine intelligence. That is how a high-value man operates. When a woman feels safe, when she feels emotionally at ease, her body opens. Not dramatically. Not in some obvious, exaggerated way. It's subtle, quiet, powerful. She stays relaxed. She doesn't tense up. She doesn't rush to pull away. Sometimes she even leans in slightly, meeting your presence halfway. That is your green light. Not loud, not flashy, but real. And if you're grounded in your masculine energy, you will notice it without chasing it. Now look at the opposite. If she stiffens, even slightly, if she pulls back, if she adjusts her position right after you touch her, if she creates space, even in a small way, that is also a message. And it matters just as much. Don't ignore it. Don't try to override it. That is where most men fail. They push forward. They try to fix the moment. And in doing so, they break the very trust that was beginning to form. Her body spoke, and they refused to listen. You must shift your focus. Stop thinking about what you are doing. Start paying attention to what she is feeling. Because if you want to attract women naturally, you don't force moments, you align with them. Her body is always communicating. Always. Even in silence. And the man who understands that moves differently. Calm, present, aware. That is masculine energy in its pure form. But there's another layer most men miss: consistency. One reaction means very little. Anyone can have a moment of comfort or a moment of hesitation. What matters is the pattern. Does she consistently relax around you? Does she consistently allow closeness? Does she consistently respond with openness instead of tension? That is what you must watch, because patterns reveal truth. Average men react to moments. A high-value man reads patterns. He doesn't rush. He doesn't guess. He observes. He understands where she is emotionally, and he moves in alignment with that reality. That is how you attract women without pressure, without confusion, without mistakes. And here is the final truth. When her reactions become consistently positive, when her body remains open, relaxed, and responsive, something deeper has already happened inside her. She is no longer just allowing you. She is choosing you. And once a woman begins to choose you at that level, everything becomes simple, clear, effortless. Now that you've seen the full picture, let's make one thing clear. This was never about touch, not really. Touch is just the surface. What it actually represents is something much deeper: trust, comfort, emotional safety, and connection. Every level we talked about, from neutral contact all the way to the most intimate signals, was not about you doing something to her. It was about her allowing you closer based on how she feels around you. That's the difference most men never understand. They think attraction is something they create through actions, but in reality, attraction is something she allows when the conditions feel right, and those conditions are not based on tricks, lines, or techniques. They're based on how you show up. Your presence, your confidence, your ability to stay calm and grounded without forcing anything, your awareness of her reactions. Because when you get those things right, everything else happens naturally. She becomes more comfortable. She opens up. She allows more access. And step by step, without words, she shows you exactly how she feels. Now, here's the part that matters most. You don't rush this. You don't try to jump ahead. You don't treat it like a game where the goal is to reach the final level as fast as possible. Because the moment you do that, you break the process. Her body immediately senses that something is off, and the trust you were building starts to close again. Instead, you let it unfold. You stay present. You pay attention. You respond to what she's showing you instead of trying to control the interaction. And when you do that, something powerful happens. You stop guessing. You stop overthinking. You stop chasing signs that may or may not be real, because you're no longer relying on what she says. You're reading what she shows. And what she shows is always more honest. So, from now on, remember this. It's not about where you touch her. It's about where she allows you. And more importantly, how she responds when you're there. That's where the truth is. That's where the real signal lives. Now, I want you to think about your own experiences. Have you ever been in a situation where a woman allowed a certain level of closeness, but you didn't fully understand what it meant at the time? Or maybe you misread a moment completely and only realized it later. Drop your experience in the comments. I read them and I respond to as many as I can. And if this gave you a completely different way of understanding attraction, make sure you subscribe. Because in the next video, we're going even deeper into female psychology, and I'm going to show you something most men only realize after they've already made the mistake. You don't want to miss that. If she hugs you like this, she's attracted to you. Psychology tricks. We are most honest not in our words, but in the way we touch and the way we linger. Most men walk into a hug like it's nothing, just a quick social ritual, a formality to get through. They lean in, tap shoulders, pull back, and move on without ever realizing they just stepped into one of the most honest moments a woman can give. Because a hug is never just a hug. It's a silent conversation. In that brief contact, her body speaks louder than any words ever could: her comfort, her curiosity, her openness, even her attraction. And here's where most men get it wrong. They don't notice. They rush it. They stiffen up. Or worse, they hesitate, unsure of what's really happening. Don't do that. Pay attention. That moment is a window, and if you miss it, you miss everything that could follow. The truth is simple. Women rarely say things directly, but they show everything. The way she leans in, how long she holds, whether her body relaxes or stays distant, these are not random. That is her truth. And if your response doesn't match that truth, you quietly break the connection. You must understand this. Attraction is not just about what she gives, it's about how you receive it. If she feels warmth and you respond with stiffness, you create distance. If she shows openness and you pull away too soon, you signal uncertainty. And uncertainty kills momentum every time. So don't guess. Don't overthink. Learn to read the moment. A friendly hug feels light, brief, almost polite. A comfortable hug lingers just a little longer, her body soft, her energy calm. But when there's something deeper, something real, you'll feel it instantly. She stays close. There's no rush to pull away. The space between you disappears. That's not accidental. That's the intention without words. And here's what matters most, your response. Be present. Be calm. Don't rush to escape the moment. Let it breathe. That is how you show confidence without saying a single word. That is how you turn a simple gesture into a real connection. Because once you start seeing what's hidden in these small moments, everything changes. You stop missing signals. You stop second-guessing yourself. And you begin to understand something most men never do. Attraction isn't spoken, it's felt quietly in the smallest actions. Why hugs matter? Most men treat a hug like background noise, quick, polite, forgettable, but that is exactly where they miss one of the clearest signals a woman can give. Because a hug is not just contact, it is communication in its purest form, unfiltered and instinctive. People can edit their words, soften their tone, even say what they don't fully mean, but the body rarely lies in close proximity, and especially not in a hug, where distance disappears and awareness fades into feeling. That is why understanding this moment matters more than you think. If you want to truly grasp female psychology and master subtle psychology tricks, you must stop listening only with your ears and start observing with intention. Notice how long she stays. Does she pull away immediately, or does she linger just a second longer than necessary? Because that extra second is not random. That is comfort. That is interest. That is a quiet signal saying, I feel good here. You must pay attention to how she positions her body. Does she lean in fully or keep space between you? Because closeness is rarely accidental, it is chosen, and it reflects how safe and connected she feels in that moment. Don't ignore her arms either. Are they light and distant, or do they wrap with a certain softness and presence? The difference between obligation and genuine warmth is always there if you slow down enough to see it. And that is where most men go wrong. They rush the moment, they hug mechanically, they exit too quickly, and then they wonder why they never notice attraction. But attraction rarely announces itself loudly. It whispers through behavior, through small, almost invisible details. This is where learning how to fall in love is not about grand gestures, but about awareness, about reading what is already being given to you without words. Understand this clearly. Nonverbal communication carries more emotional truth than conversation ever will, especially in close interactions. A hug is one of the few moments where both people drop their guard just enough for something real to show. That is why you must take it seriously, not in a heavy or awkward way, but in a conscious way. Because once you begin to recognize these patterns, you stop guessing and start understanding. You stop chasing obvious signs and start noticing authentic ones. That is a powerful shift. Mastering psychology tricks and truly understanding female psychology is not about manipulation. It is about awareness, about seeing what is already there and responding with calm confidence. So don't dismiss the hug. Don't rush through it. Don't treat it like nothing. Be present, observe, feel the moment for what it is. Because a hug is never just a hug. It is a message. It is a reflection of emotion in real time. And if you learn to read it, you will begin to understand connection on a deeper level. That is where real attraction begins, quietly, naturally, without force, exactly the way how to fall in love is meant to happen. Where most men go wrong. Most men don't fail because they lack effort. They fail because they lack awareness. That line alone explains almost everything that goes wrong in these small, quiet moments, especially something as simple and as revealing as a hug. Now that you begin to see why hugs matter, you must also see clearly where most men lose the opportunity right in front of them. And it's not complicated. It's not about saying the wrong thing. It's about not knowing how to be in the moment. Most men either rush it, hesitate, or overthink it until the moment slips through their fingers. Don't rush. Don't freeze. Don't try to calculate every second. That is where things fall apart. Some men step into a hug carrying uncertainty in their body. You can feel it instantly. Their shoulders are tense. Their movements are stiff. There is no flow, no calm presence. They hug quickly, then pull away like they've touched something they don't fully understand. That reaction quietly signals discomfort. It tells her, without words, that you are not fully grounded in yourself. And listen carefully, attraction doesn't grow in tension. It grows in ease. A high-value man understands this. He doesn't force the moment. He settles into it. Then there are the men who go too far in the other direction. They hold on too long, without awareness, without sensitivity to her energy. They think holding longer creates connection. It doesn't. Not if it's not mutual. Not if it's not aligned. That is where discomfort begins. That is where the moment turns from natural to forced. And once something feels forced, attraction doesn't rise, it quietly fades. So don't assume more is better. Be precise. Be present. That is masculine energy at its best, calm, aware, and controlled. Here's the truth most men miss. Both of these mistakes come from the same root problem, lack of awareness. Not lack of effort. Not lack of desire. Awareness. When you don't understand what the hug actually means, you cannot respond in a way that matches it. And when your response doesn't match her energy, something subtle breaks. It's not dramatic. It's not obvious, but it's there. And she feels it immediately. Because for her, a hug is never just a hug. It is a moment of connection, a test of emotional presence, a silent conversation without words. In that brief contact, she is asking questions she may never say out loud. Are you relaxed? Are you comfortable in your own skin? Do you understand the moment? Or do you disrupt it? And your body answers before your mouth ever could. If you pull away too fast, it signals hesitation, not confidence. If you freeze or hesitate, it creates a pause that shouldn't exist. That pause becomes awkwardness, and awkwardness kills momentum. If you overdo it, holding too long, too tight, without reading her cues, it feels unnatural. Almost like you're trying to take something instead of share something. None of these reactions help you attract women. They quietly push them away. Another mistake, one that many men don't even realize they're making, is trying to interpret every hug the same way. Don't do that. Not all hugs are equal. Not all hugs carry the same meaning. Some are polite. Some are warm. Some carry genuine interest. And if you treat them all the same, you will misread the situation. Every time, context matters. Energy matters. Timing matters. A high-value man doesn't guess. He observes. He feels the moment. He reads the subtle signals, the way she approaches, the way she holds, the way she releases. That is awareness. That is masculine energy expressed through calm attention, not force. And when you have that awareness, something powerful happens. You stop overthinking. You stop second-guessing yourself. You stop trying to perform. Instead, you begin to match. Match her energy. Match her pace. Match the emotional tone of the moment. If her hug is light and brief, you mirror that. If it's warm and lingering, you allow it, but only as long as it feels natural. Not a second longer. Not a second shorter. That is precision. That is control. That is how you attract women without saying a word. And here's the deeper truth. This isn't really about the hug. The hug is just the surface. What matters is what it reveals about you. Your presence. Your awareness. Your ability to stay grounded in a moment without rushing it or overextending it. That is what she's feeling. That is what she's responding to. And that is what creates attraction at a level most men never reach. So don't treat these moments casually. Don't dismiss them as small or meaningless. That is a mistake. Small moments reveal big truths. And the man who understands that, the man who moves with calm awareness, who responds instead of reacts, who aligns instead of forces, is the man who naturally stands out. Not because he tries harder, but because he understands better. Be that man. Stay present. Stay aware. Don't rush. Don't hesitate. Don't force. Match the moment. That is how connection flows. That is how attraction builds. And that is how a high-value man moves through even the simplest interactions with quiet confidence and undeniable masculine energy. And if you understand this, don't stay passive. Step into awareness. Drop a comment right now. I match her energy. I don't chase it. Like the video, subscribe for more sharp, real insight, and remember, attraction isn't about doing more. It's about responding right. 1. The friendly pat hug. Most men misread the friendly pat hug, and that misunderstanding quietly destroys opportunities before they even begin, because what looks casual on the surface is often the first doorway to something deeper. This is where you must sharpen your awareness and apply old Stoic wisdom. As Marcus Aurelius once said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That hug, short, light, with a couple of polite pats, is not rejection. It is permission. Permission to stay, to build, to grow. And if you carry an iron mind, you recognize this instantly. Instead of reacting emotionally, instead of pulling away, instead of shrinking your energy, you stay grounded, calm, steady. Because attraction rarely begins with intensity. It begins with ease, with comfort, with a sense that being around you feels simple and natural. And that is your advantage if you understand it. Stoicism win is not about chasing signals. It is about mastering your response to them. And in modern life, where everyone is rushing, overthinking, and forcing outcomes, the man who slows down and builds connection stands out without trying. You must see clearly. This hug is not the end. It is the beginning. It is the first green light, subtle, but real, and your job is not to escalate wildly or retreat completely. Your job is to build, patiently, deliberately, like a man who knows exactly what he is doing. Do not rush. Do not freeze. Do not overanalyze. Stay present. Stay relaxed. Because your presence after the hug matters more than the hug itself. Look her in the eyes just a second longer. Speak with calm certainty. Add a touch of warmth, a touch of playfulness, not forced, not exaggerated, just enough to shift the interaction from neutral to engaging. This is how energy changes. This is how connection deepens. This is how attraction quietly grows beneath the surface. Remember what Lao Tzu said, nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. And that is your mindset here. No pressure, no force, just steady progression. Most men fail because they think every moment must produce immediate results. But a man guided by old Stoic wisdom understands that consistency beats intensity, that small moments, repeated over time, create powerful shifts. That comfort today becomes curiosity tomorrow and attraction the day after. You listen fully, you respond thoughtfully, you give her space to feel at ease, while subtly raising the emotional tone of the interaction. And this balance is what separates a man who gets ignored from a man who becomes unforgettable. In today's world, where attention is scattered and patience is rare, your ability to stay composed, attentive, and slightly intriguing gives you a massive edge. And this is where Stoicism becomes real, not theory, but action, not words, but presence. The friendly pat hug is your signal to lean in, not physically, but emotionally, mentally, energetically, and build something real, step by step, without desperation, without doubt. You must train your mind to see opportunity where others see nothing, to stay steady where others become uncertain, to act with quiet confidence where others overreact, because that is the essence of an iron mind. And when you do this consistently, when each interaction becomes just a little more engaging, a little more connected, a little more alive, something shifts naturally, effortlessly, and that simple, polite hug begins to change. It lingers a bit longer. It feels warmer, more intentional, more personal. And that is when you know you didn't force attraction. You built it the right way, the strong way, the way that lasts. 2. The firm hug. Most men overlook the firm hug, and that is exactly where they lose quiet opportunities without even realizing it, because this is not just a hug, this is a shift, a signal, a moment where female psychology begins to reveal something deeper, something intentional, something worth your full attention. A firm hug is not rushed, not casual, not mechanical. It is steady, grounded, and present. You feel it immediately. Her arms don't just touch you, they hold you. There is a slight pressure, a subtle closeness, a calm pause in time where she is not thinking about leaving, she is choosing to stay. And that choice matters. That is where many men fail to read the moment. They treat it like every other hug. They pull away too soon. They act on habit instead of awareness. Don't do that. You must understand. Attraction does not shout, it whispers. It builds quietly through moments like this. This is one of those psychology tricks that separates the unaware man from the man who understands how to fall in love naturally, without force, without confusion. When she gives you a firm hug, she is not just being polite. She is comfortable. She feels safe. She enjoys your presence. And comfort, as simple as it sounds, is the foundation of every meaningful connection. Without it, nothing grows. With it, everything becomes possible. So what do? You don't rush. You don't hesitate. You stay just 1 second longer than usual. That is all. Not forced, not exaggerated. Calm, natural, present. That extra second tells her everything she needs to know, that you are grounded, that you are not nervous, that you can meet her where she is instead of pulling away from the moment. This is how to fall in love in real life, not through grand gestures, but through small, precise responses that align with human emotion and female psychology. And here is where it becomes even more important: consistency. One firm hug can be, but repeated firm hugs are a pattern, and patterns reveal intention. If she continues to greet you this way across different moments, different days, different settings, she is choosing that closeness again and again. That is not accidental. That is emotional investment. And if you keep responding like it means nothing, the connection will stay flat. It won't disappear, but it won't grow either. As Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. In this case, your power is awareness. Your strength is presence. After the hug, don't break character. Don't suddenly act different. Don't overthink. Stay relaxed. Stay steady. Let the conversation flow naturally. But carry a slightly stronger presence, a quiet confidence that says you noticed, you understood, and you matched her energy without making it a big deal. That is one of the most powerful psychology tricks you can learn. Because attraction grows in emotional safety, not pressure. And when she smiles, holds eye contact, or lingers just a little closer after the hug, pay attention. These are not random behaviors. These are signals. Clear, simple, human signals rooted in female psychology and emotional connection. Most men miss them because they are looking for something dramatic, something obvious, something undeniable. But real attraction is subtle. It builds in layers. It deepens through moments that feel small but carry meaning. So don't ignore the firm hug. Don't rush it. Don't treat it like nothing. Be aware. Be present. Be the man who understands that how to fall in love is not about chasing, not about forcing, but about recognizing these moments and responding with calm precision. Because when you do, the interaction shifts. The energy changes. And what once felt uncertain begins to move into something clear, something mutual, something real. If you felt the truth in this, don't just watch, act on it. A firm hug is not random. It's a moment of connection, and how you respond decides everything. Don't rush. Don't break it. Be present. Match her energy. That is how attraction quietly grows. Now drop this in the comments to lock it in your mind. I stay present. I match the moment. I let connection grow. Like the video, subscribe for more sharp, real-world insight, and remember, small moments handled right change everything. 3. The lingering hug. Now we move into a moment most men feel, but very few truly understand. The lingering hug. This is where everything slows down, where the interaction stops being polite and starts becoming personal. Don't ignore this. Don't brush it off, because this is not just a hug anymore. This is a signal. A lingering hug is not about seconds. It's about presence. It's about what happens in that quiet space where neither of you rushes to pull away. Her arms stay around you. Her body remains close. And for a brief moment, time stretches. That pause matters. That is where attraction lives. That is where connection breathes. You must understand this. When a woman lingers, she is not unsure. She is comfortable. She is choosing to stay in your space without resistance. Her body is not preparing to leave. It is settling. And that settling is a reflection of how she feels about you. A high-value man recognizes this instantly. He doesn't question it. He doesn't overanalyze it. He simply stays present and allows it to unfold. Pay attention to the details. Her grip softens, not because she is losing interest, but because she is relaxing into the moment. Her posture becomes natural, not stiff or controlled. Sometimes her breathing slows. Sometimes there is a quiet stillness, almost like neither of you wants to be the first to break the moment. That is not accidental. That is emotional comfort expressed through the body. And here is where most men fail. They panic. The moment feels longer than expected, and instead of embracing it, they escape it. They pull away too soon. They break the rhythm. Don't do that. Don't sabotage what is naturally building. Because from her perspective, she stayed and you didn't. That creates distance where there was potential for connection. Be calm. Be grounded. Be the man who can sit in silence without needing to fill it. That is masculine energy. That is what allows you to attract women without forcing anything. You don't need to impress. You don't need to escalate. You don't need to make a move. That is where many go wrong. They think action creates attraction. No, presence does. A high-value man understands timing. He understands that not every moment needs to be pushed forward. Some moments need to be held. This is one of them. When the hug lingers, your only job is to stay relaxed. Let your body communicate calm confidence. Let her feel that you are not in a rush to take, but comfortable enough to receive the moment as it is. That is powerful. That is rare. That is what separates a man who chases from a man who attracts women naturally. Don't overthink it. Don't tighten up. Don't suddenly change your behavior. Stay steady. Stay present. Because when you can exist comfortably in that closeness, you send a message without saying a word. I am confident. I am grounded. I am not rushed. And that message lands deeper than anything you could ever say. Masculine energy is not loud. It is not forced. It is quiet control. It is emotional stability. It is knowing that you don't need to rush moments to make them meaningful. And when she feels that from you, she relaxes even more. The connection deepens without effort. At this stage, things are no longer subtle. The signals are becoming clear. A lingering hug, especially when it happens more than once, is not. It is consistency. It is interest. It is her way of saying, without words, I feel good around you. And if you handle this moment correctly, if you don't rush, don't panic, don't break the flow, you allow something real to grow. Not forced, not awkward, just natural progression. That is the difference. That is the edge. That is how a high-value man moves through these moments, calm, aware, and always in control of himself. 4. The intimate embrace. The intimate embrace is where everything becomes unmistakably clear, and if you've lived long enough, you already know this truth deep down. People don't fake closeness with their body, they reveal it. This is not a polite gesture, not a social habit, not something done out of obligation. This is connection. Real connection. Her body leans fully into yours, not halfway, not cautiously, but with intention. There is no distance left to protect. As Maya Angelou once said, people will forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And in this moment, she is choosing to feel you. That is the signal. That is the message. Her head resting on your shoulder or near your neck is not accidental. It is trust. It is comfort. It is her nervous system saying, I am safe here. And when her arms hold you tighter, when she doesn't rush to pull away, when her hands move slowly along your back with calm intention, you must understand this. Nothing about that is random. This is where old Stoic wisdom becomes your advantage. Because most men ruin this moment. They overreact. They freeze. They rush. They break the rhythm. Don't do that. Be still. Be grounded. Be present. That is iron mind. That is Stoicism win. Marcus Aurelius taught, you have power over your mind, not outside events. And this is exactly that moment. Control your reaction. Don't let excitement turn into tension. Don't let doubt turn into awkwardness. Stay steady, because while she is in your arms, she is also reading you. She is asking silent questions. Can this man handle closeness? Can he stay calm? Can he match my energy without forcing it? And your body answers before your words ever can. If you pull away too fast, you say, I'm unsure. If you hold too stiffly, you say, I'm uncomfortable. But if you stay relaxed, breathe slowly, and allow the moment to exist without trying to control it, you say something powerful. I belong in this moment. That is attractive. That is rare. That is iron mind. Modern life has trained people to rush everything. Quick messages, quick meetings, quick exits. But attraction does not grow in speed. It grows in presence, in stillness, in awareness. So when she stays, you stay. When she softens, you soften. Not by copying, but by aligning. This is what Stoicism win is about. Emotional control, situational awareness, quiet strength. You don't need clever lines. You don't need to escalate. You don't need to do anything. You must simply not ruin what is already happening. Let the silence speak. Let the closeness breathe. Because here is the truth most men never learn. Attraction often deepens in the pauses, not the actions. And when someone chooses to remain close longer than expected, they are not just accepting the moment. They are enjoying it. Don't interrupt that. Don't question it. Accept it. As Lao Tzu said, nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. That is your mindset. Slow down internally, even if the world outside moves fast. Hold the moment without gripping it. Feel it without chasing it. That is how you master it. That is how you become the man who doesn't just experience connection, but creates it naturally, effortlessly, powerfully. And remember this clearly. At this stage, the signal is already given. The door is already open. The only question left is simple. Can you walk through it with calm, with confidence, with presence? Or will you hesitate and let the moment pass? Choose wisely. Stay grounded. Stay present. That is the path of old Stoic wisdom. That is Stoicism win. That is iron mind. If you understand what this moment really means, then don't hesitate. Step into it with calm, control, and presence. Most men lose the opportunity right here because they panic, overthink, or pull away too soon. Don't be that man. Be the one who stays grounded, who matches her energy, who allows connection to grow without forcing it. That is where real attraction deepens. If you're ready to handle these moments with confidence and emotional strength, comment this below. I stay present. I stay calm. I let attraction grow. 5. The side hug. The side hug is one of the most common gestures you will encounter, yet it is also one of the most misread signals in female psychology. And if you misunderstand it, you risk ruining something that could have naturally grown into real attraction. When she leans in slightly, gives you only one arm, and keeps her lower body angled away, that is not rejection, that is information. That is her quietly communicating her current level of comfort without using words. And if you are paying attention, you will realize this moment is not about forcing anything. It is about reading the energy correctly and responding with calm confidence. Because the truth is, attraction rarely begins with intensity. It begins with subtlety, with small openings, with moments like this where she is testing the emotional environment around you. And this is exactly where most men fail. They see distance and immediately try to close it. They interpret neutrality as a problem to solve, and they rush to turn a simple side hug into something deeper. But you must not do that. Do not reach for more when she is offering less. Do not try to upgrade the moment before it is ready. Because when you push too early, you break the natural rhythm of attraction, and that is one of the most overlooked psychology tricks when it comes to understanding how to fall in love in a healthy, grounded way. Instead, you must learn to see the side hug for what it really is: a checkpoint, a pause, a signal that says, I'm comfortable, but I'm still observing. And that is not a bad place to be. In fact, it is a necessary stage in female psychology. Because attraction grows in layers, not in leaps, and if you respect those layers, you become the kind of man who feels safe, steady, and emotionally intelligent, which is far more attractive than any forced display of confidence. So be calm, be grounded, be aware of the space she is keeping, and understand that her body language is not random. It is deliberate, it is protective, and it is guiding you, if you are willing to listen. Now here is where it gets deeper. The side hug is often a reflection of her internal state, not just her feelings toward you. She may like you, she may be curious about you, but she is still deciding how far she wants to go. She is measuring your energy, your reactions, your patience, and most importantly, your ability to handle uncertainty without becoming needy or reactive. And this is where the real psychology tricks come into play, because attraction is not just about what you do, it is about how you handle what you don't get. It is about your response to limited access. And if you can stay composed, if you can accept the side hug without trying to change it, you send a powerful signal that you are not dependent on immediate validation, and that alone places you in a completely different category in her mind. Think about it. Most men react to distance with pressure. They try to prove themselves, they try to escalate, they try to force a deeper connection. But you must not follow that pattern. You must break it. You must show that you understand the pace of real connection. Because how to fall in love is not about rushing into closeness. It is about allowing closeness to develop naturally over time. And that requires patience, awareness, and emotional control. So when she gives you a side hug, receive it with ease. Return it with the same level of energy, and then let it go. Do not linger. Do not overanalyze. Do not turn it into something bigger in your mind. Because the moment you start chasing meaning instead of observing patterns, you lose clarity, and clarity is everything when it comes to female psychology. Now let's go even further. The side hug is also a test of your boundaries. It is her way of seeing whether you respect hers. And if you fail that test, even subtly, you lower your value in her eyes. Because attraction is built on respect first, not intensity, and respect is shown through restraint, through your ability to stay within the space she is comfortable with. And this is where many men misunderstand psychology tricks. They think attraction is about doing more, saying more, showing more. But often, it is about holding back, about knowing when not to act, about understanding that silence, space, and patience can create far more attraction than any forced move ever could. So do not try to turn a side hug into a full embrace. Do not try to read it as a hidden signal of desire. Take it at face value, respect it, and then focus on building connection in other ways, through conversation, through presence, through consistency. Because emotional safety is what allows physical closeness to grow, not the other way around. And here is something you must remember. Attraction is not a single moment. It is a pattern over time. One side hug means nothing on its own. But repeated behaviors, consistent signals, gradual changes in how she interacts with you, that is where the truth lies. So instead of obsessing over one interaction, step back and observe the bigger picture. Is she becoming more comfortable around you? Is she opening up more? Is she initiating contact? These are the real indicators of interest, not just one brief moment of physical contact. And this is why understanding female psychology is so important, because it teaches you to think in patterns, not in isolated events. It teaches you to stay grounded in reality instead of getting lost in assumptions. Now let's address another mistake: overinterpretation. Many men see a side hug and immediately start asking themselves, does she like me or not? And that question itself is the problem because it comes from a place of needing certainty. And attraction does not work that way. It is not black and white. It is not immediate. It is fluid. It evolves. And if you try to force clarity too early, you create pressure, and pressure kills attraction faster than anything else. So instead of seeking answers, focus on building connection. Focus on being present. Focus on creating a comfortable, positive experience whenever you are around her. Because that is how to fall in love in a way that is natural and sustainable, not by chasing labels, not by demanding clarity, but by allowing things to unfold at their own pace. And here is the final truth: the side hug is not a barrier. It is an invitation to slow down, to be patient, to show that you are not in a rush. And when you embrace that mindset, everything changes. You stop reacting emotionally to small signals. You stop trying to control the outcome, and you start moving with quiet confidence. And that is what truly attracts: not force, not intensity, but calm, steady presence. So the next time she gives you a side hug, do not overthink it. Do not try to change it. Accept it, respect it, and continue building the connection in a way that feels natural and effortless. Because in the world of psychology tricks and female psychology, the man who understands timing, space, and emotional control is always the one who stands out. And that is the man who eventually turns small moments into something much deeper, something real, something lasting. 6. The hesitant hug. The hesitant hug is one of the most misunderstood signals, and yet, for the man who truly understands people, it is one of the most revealing moments you will ever experience. This is the hug where she steps in, but not fully. Her arms may reach you, but there is a slight pause, a subtle tension, a feeling that the movement is not completely finished. It is brief. It is light. It is not cold, but it is not fully warm either. And that is exactly the point. This is not rejection. Do not misread it. This is uncertainty. She is not pulling away from you. She is simply not fully stepping in yet. That is a critical difference. Most men fail right here because they react instead of observing. They panic internally. They start asking themselves, did I do something wrong? And then they try to compensate. They squeeze tighter. They hold longer. They try to turn a quiet moment into something more intense. Don't do that. Don't force what has not naturally formed. That is where attraction quietly breaks. Understand this clearly. Comfort does not grow under pressure. It grows in space. It grows in calm. It grows when a man is steady enough to let a moment be exactly what it is without trying to control it. That is what separates a high-value man from the rest. A high-value man does not chase certainty in every interaction. He allows things to unfold. He knows that when a woman gives a hesitant hug, she is not closing the door. She is standing at the doorway, looking in, deciding if she feels safe enough to step further. And your job is not to pull her in. Your job is to make the space feel safe enough that she chooses to step in on her own. That is how you attract women naturally, without effort, without pressure, without confusion. Think of it like this: attraction is not a switch you flip. It is a flame you build. If you rush it, you burn it out. If you ignore it, it fades. But if you give it the right environment, steady, calm, and patient, it grows stronger on its own. The hesitant hug is the early flicker of that flame. It is not weak. It is simply new. And new things require care, not force. This is where your masculine energy must remain grounded, not reactive, not needy, not overeager. Be still. Be composed. Be present. That is what creates trust. Most men think they need to do more in these moments. More touch, more words, more intensity. That is a mistake. What you need is less, not more. Less tension, less overthinking, less need to prove yourself. Because the truth is simple: when a woman is unsure, she is watching how you handle uncertainty. She is not just feeling the hug. She is feeling your energy. Is it calm or is it restless? Is it confident or is it seeking approval? That is what she responds to. That is what shapes her next move. So when that hesitant hug happens, do not rush it. Do not analyze it in the moment. Simply meet it with ease. Hug her back naturally. No extra pressure. No awkward delay. Then release smoothly, as if everything is exactly as it should be. Because it is. That is the mindset you must carry. That is how a high-value man moves through interactions. He does not cling to moments. He does not try to stretch them beyond what they are. He allows them to breathe. And here is where it becomes powerful. When you respond this way, you remove pressure from her. You give her space to feel. And when a woman feels safe, she opens up. Slowly, yes, but genuinely. The next hug may be less hesitant. The one after that may be warmer. And before you even realize it, what once felt uncertain becomes natural, effortless, and real. That is how attraction grows when it is not forced. That is how you attract women in a way that lasts, not just in a moment, but over time. Remember this rule. Don't rush what is still forming. Be the man who understands timing. Be the man who respects emotional pace. Be the man whose masculine energy creates calm instead of pressure. Because when you carry yourself this way, you don't need to convince anyone of your value. It is felt. It is experienced. It is undeniable. And that is what makes a high-value man stand out without saying a word. 7. The goodbye hug versus the hello hug. Most men miss this completely, and that is exactly why they stay confused, stuck in uncertainty, overthinking signals that were actually clear from the beginning. The difference between a hello hug and a goodbye hug is not small. It is not random. It is a window into her emotional state in that exact moment, and if you pay attention with an iron mind, you begin to see what others overlook. A greeting hug is often light, quick, almost automatic. It is social. It is polite. It says, I acknowledge you. But it does not reveal depth. It does not reveal investment. It is surface-level energy. Now stop. Pay attention. The goodbye hug is different. It carries weight. It carries truth. Because in that moment, she is not arriving, she is leaving. And leaving forces emotion to rise. As Maya Angelou once said, people will forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. That is the key. The goodbye hug is about feeling. If she hugs you longer when she leaves, that is not accidental. If her arms stay wrapped around you just a second more than necessary, that is not politeness. That is hesitation. That is emotion resisting separation. And you must understand this clearly. Attraction often reveals itself not in the beginning, but in the reluctance to end. Be sharp. Be observant. A slight pause before she lets go is louder than words. A tighter squeeze is more honest than any compliment. This is old Stoic wisdom in motion. Observe actions, not declarations. Because people can control what they say, but they struggle to hide what they feel in transitional moments. And goodbye is a transition. That is where truth leaks out. That is where her guard drops for just a second. And in that second, everything is revealed. Do not ignore it. Do not dismiss it. That is where the signal lives. In modern life, where everything is rushed, distracted, and filtered through screens, these small physical cues matter more than ever. People don't say what they feel anymore. They show it in fragments, in micro-moments, in hesitation. And the goodbye hug is one of the clearest fragments you will ever see. If she pulls away quickly, it is neutral. Accept it. Stay grounded. But if she lingers, even slightly, you must recognize the shift. That is not casual. That is emotional presence. That is her body saying, I'm not ready to disconnect yet. And here is your instruction. Do not rush it. Do not break it early out of nervousness. Stay calm. Stay centered. Let the moment breathe. Because a man who carries an iron mind does not panic in emotional moments. He reads them. He allows them. He understands that attraction grows in stillness, not in force. As Marcus Aurelius taught through his reflections, you must train yourself to see things as they are, not as you fear them to be. And what you are seeing in a lingering goodbye hug is not imagination. It is real. It is present. It is happening. The mistake most men make is that they look for grand gestures. They wait for obvious signals. They expect clarity to come loudly. But attraction is often quiet, subtle, controlled, especially in women who value emotional safety. That is why Stoicism win is about sharpening your awareness, not chasing attention. You do not need her to say anything dramatic. You need to notice what she cannot fully hide. The goodbye hug is one of those moments. It is where her emotional investment briefly surfaces before she regains control. And if you are paying attention, you will see it every time. Now apply this. Next time you are with her, do not just focus on the conversation. Do not just think about what to say next. Be present when the moment ends. That is when the truth begins. Feel the hug. Measure the duration. Notice the pressure. Notice if she leans in or pulls away. Notice if there is stillness before release. These are not small details. These are signals. And when you start seeing them clearly, your confidence changes. You stop guessing. You stop overthinking. You start knowing. That is the power of old Stoic wisdom. It trains you to observe reality without distortion. And when you combine that with emotional awareness, you become a man who understands people at a deeper level. A man who does not chase validation because he can read intention. A man who builds connection through calm presence, not desperation. Remember this, attraction is not proven in how she greets you. It is revealed in how she struggles to leave you. That is the difference. That is the truth. And if you can train your mind to recognize that moment, to stay grounded in it, to not rush or react impulsively, you step into a different level of awareness. You step into control. You step into clarity. This is Stoicism win in real life. This is how an iron mind operates. Quiet, observant, certain. All right, my friend, now you see it clearly. This was never just about a hug. It was about awareness, about understanding what most people overlook. Small moments, quiet signals, real emotions shown without words. So here's the truth you need to carry with you. Don't rush, don't overthink, and don't try to force meaning into every single moment. Attraction doesn't live in one hug. It lives in patterns, in consistency, in how she shows up again and again around you. Your job is simple. Stay calm. Stay present. Pay attention. When you stop chasing certainty and start observing naturally, everything becomes easier. You respond better. You feel more confident. And that quiet confidence, that's what truly stands out. Remember this, a strong man doesn't react to every signal. He understands the bigger picture. He trusts the process. He lets things unfold. So next time you're in that moment, don't just feel it, understand it. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you. And before you go, tell me this. What do you think matters most in a hug? The closeness, the duration, or the energy? Drop it in the comments. I read more than you think. Stay sharp. Stay calm. I'll see you in the next one. Psychology of attraction. If she touches the spot, she's secretly craving you. If you want to be loved, be lovable. Ovid. A brief touch can say what words often hesitate to reveal, and a man who understands this begins to see attraction not as something loud or obvious, but as something quiet, almost whispered through movement and presence. When a woman's body makes even the smallest contact with yours, it is rarely random. It is often the emotional mind speaking before logic has time to intervene. Most men overlook these moments because they expect clarity in words, but attraction rarely introduces itself so directly. It shows up in patterns, in gestures, in energy. You must pay attention. You must observe without rushing to conclusions because confidence grows from awareness, not assumption. There are subtle signals that appear when she feels drawn to you, tiny adjustments, fleeting glances, unconscious movements that reveal more than any message she could send later. Think about those strange moments when the air shifts between you and her. No confession, no dramatic move, yet something feels charged. That is not your imagination. That is emotional instinct at work. The human brain reacts emotionally before it thinks logically, and the body reflects that reaction instantly, without permission, without planning. That is why these signals are so powerful. They are honest. A man who ignores them stays confused, always guessing, always doubting himself. But a man who learns to read them moves differently. He becomes calm. He becomes grounded. He stops chasing clarity and starts recognizing it when it quietly appears. And that changes everything, because attraction is not built through force, it is revealed through awareness. So don't rush. Don't overthink. Watch closely. Notice how she adjusts her clothing, how she subtly fixes herself when you are near. That is not just habit. That is her body responding to your presence, preparing, aligning, signaling. Small actions, quiet meaning. And if you understand them, you stop missing what was always right in front of you. So stay with me, press the like button, and subscribe if you enjoy learning about the psychology behind attraction. Now let's start looking at the signals themselves. Think of them as 7 small touches or gestures that act like invitations. Each one tells a quiet story. The first sign is when she adjusts her clothing. The first sign is subtle, almost easy to miss if you're not paying attention, yet it speaks volumes when you understand it. She adjusts her clothing, and that small, seemingly insignificant movement carries more emotional weight than most men realize. You might see her gently pull at her sleeve, straighten her collar, smooth her skirt, or fix a strap that didn't really need fixing in the first place. Don't dismiss it. That is not random behavior. That is awareness. That is her body responding before her words ever do. When a woman begins to feel attracted, her attention shifts inward for a moment and then outward toward you, and in that transition, she becomes more conscious of how she appears in your presence. It's not just about looking good. It's about wanting to be seen a certain way. It's about presenting herself with intention. That is one of the quiet foundations of how to fall in love: attention, awareness, and the desire to be perceived positively by someone who matters. Now imagine this. You're in a relaxed conversation, nothing overly intense, maybe even light and casual, yet she keeps making these small adjustments. Her outfit was perfectly fine minutes ago. Nothing has changed externally, but internally, something has shifted. You must understand this clearly. When her behavior changes without a logical external reason, the reason is emotional. That is your clue. That is your opening to read the moment. Not react impulsively, but observe with calm clarity. A high-value man does not rush to conclusions. He notices patterns. He stays grounded. He understands that attraction often whispers before it ever speaks loudly. Be careful here. Don't overreact. Don't suddenly become overly eager or try to impress her. That will break the natural flow. Instead, stay composed. Stay steady. That is what amplifies your presence. Because while she is adjusting, while she is becoming more aware of herself, she is also, consciously or not, checking your reaction. Are you calm? Are you centered? Or are you thrown off balance by small signals? This is where many men lose their advantage. They see a sign of interest and immediately chase it. Don't do that. Be the man who remains unshaken. That is what makes her lean in further. There's a deeper layer here that most overlook. These small adjustments are not just about attraction, they're about emotional readiness. In many ways, this is part of how to fall in love, not the dramatic version you see in movies, but the quiet, real version where interest builds through subtle signals, mutual awareness, and emotional tension. She is not declaring anything. She is inviting possibility. And your role is not to force that possibility into something concrete too quickly. Your role is to allow it to unfold. A high-value man understands timing. He knows that attraction grows stronger in space, not pressure. So when you notice her adjusting her clothing, don't interrupt the moment with unnecessary words or forced charm. Let the silence breathe. Let the eye contact linger a second longer. Let your calm energy do the work. That is how attraction deepens without effort. That is how you create an environment where she feels both excited and safe at the same time. At the same time, you must also look inward. Her signals mean nothing if your own presence is unstable. Be honest with yourself. Are you grounded? Are you confident without needing validation? Because attraction is not just about what she does. It's about how you respond. If you remain steady, if you carry yourself with quiet certainty, you naturally become more appealing. Not because you're trying to be, but because you are. That is the essence of a high value man. He doesn't chase attention, he attracts it through his state of being. And here's the truth most men don't hear often enough: attraction is rarely loud at the beginning. It's quiet, it's subtle. It shows up in small behaviors like this. If you ignore them, you miss the opportunity. If you overreact to them, you destroy the balance. So, what do? You stay present. You observe. You respond with calm confidence. That is the middle path. That is where real connection begins. In many ways, learning to recognize these moments is part of mastering how to fall in love in a mature, grounded way. It's not about chasing signals. It's about understanding them. It's about building something that feels natural, not forced. And when you combine that awareness with the mindset of a high value man, something powerful happens. You stop needing obvious signs because you begin to read the subtle ones instinctively. So next time you notice her adjusting her clothing, don't brush it off. Don't overthink it either. Just recognize it for what it is: a quiet signal, a moment of awareness, a small window into her emotional state. Then stay calm, stay centered, be present. Because often, it's in these smallest moments that attraction begins to take root, slowly, naturally, and with a depth that lasts far longer than anything loud or obvious ever could. The second sign involves her neck or collarbone. The second sign is subtle, almost easy to miss, yet incredibly revealing if you understand the deeper layers of human behavior. It shows up around her neck or collarbone, one of the most naturally sensitive and expressive areas of the body. When a woman lightly touches this area, adjusts her necklace, or lets her fingers rest there while she's speaking to you, don't brush it off as random movement. Don't assume it means nothing. That is a mistake many men make. In the world of psychology tricks and female psychology, small gestures often carry big meaning. This particular action reflects a moment where comfort and curiosity meet. It's not forced. It's not loud. It's quiet, natural, and revealing. You must learn to see it for what it is: a signal that she feels safe enough to soften and interested enough to stay engaged. Now, be clear. This isn't about overanalyzing every movement. It's about recognizing patterns. A single touch might mean nothing, but repeated gestures, especially when paired with eye contact, relaxed posture, or a slight smile, begin to form a story. And that story often says, "I feel good around you." In female psychology, the neck and collarbone area are associated with vulnerability. When she draws attention to it, even unconsciously, she is lowering her guard just a little. That is not something people do around just anyone. That is something reserved for moments where attraction and emotional ease exist together. Think about it this way: when people feel tense, they close off. They cross their arms. They tighten their posture. They protect themselves. But when a woman touches her neck gently while talking to you, she is doing the opposite. She is opening up. She is exposing a more delicate side without saying a word. That is the language of attraction in its quietest form. And if you're paying attention, it speaks volumes. Psychology tricks often rely on what is not said, and this is one of those moments where silence carries meaning. Be observant, but don't be reactive. That is important. Don't suddenly change your behavior the moment you notice it. Don't become overly eager or intense. That will break the natural flow. Instead, stay grounded. Stay calm. That is what creates a space where attraction can grow. When she feels that you are steady and not easily shaken, her comfort deepens. And when comfort deepens, these small signals become more frequent, more natural, and more obvious. There's also a layer of self-awareness happening here. Sometimes, when a woman feels a spark of attraction, she becomes slightly more conscious of her appearance and her body language. Touching her necklace or collarbone can be a way of grounding herself in that moment. It's a quiet adjustment, a subtle way of managing her own emotions while staying connected to the interaction. In female psychology, these gestures are often not planned. They happen instinctively. That is why they are so powerful. They are real. They are unfiltered. Don't ignore the emotional context either. This gesture often appears when the conversation feels easy, when there's a sense of mutual interest, and when the energy between you is calm but engaging. That is the environment where attraction grows naturally. You must focus on creating that kind of atmosphere, not by forcing it, but by being present. Listen, speak with intention, be relaxed. That is how you allow these signals to emerge. At the same time, don't fall into the trap of thinking every woman who touches her neck is attracted to you. That is not the lesson here. The lesson is awareness, not assumption. Combine this signal with others. Look for consistency. Look for alignment between her words, her tone, and her body language. That is how you read the full picture. Psychology tricks are not about guessing. They're about understanding patterns and responding with clarity. And here's something deeper to consider. Attraction is not just about what she does. It's about how you make her feel. If she feels safe, respected, and slightly intrigued, her body will reflect that before her words ever do. That is the essence of female psychology. Emotions show up physically, subtly, quietly, but clearly if you know where to look. So don't chase signals. Don't force meaning. Be the kind of man who notices without reacting, who understands without rushing. That is where real confidence lives. When you can sit in a moment, observe calmly, and let things unfold without pressure, you create a dynamic that feels natural and strong. And in that space, attraction doesn't need to be announced. It reveals itself, one small gesture at a time. Another clue involves her lips. Watch closely, not with tension, not with need, with awareness. Because one of the most revealing signals of attraction is quiet, almost invisible, and often overlooked. It shows up in her lips. When she gently bites them, when she slowly applies lip balm, when her fingers brush across them while her eyes drift toward you, something deeper is happening. This is not performance. This is instinct. Across cultures, across generations, lips have always been tied to desire, intimacy, and emotional openness. As Albert Morabian famously suggested, much of human communication is nonverbal. That is what you are witnessing here. Not words. Signals. Subtle. Honest. Unfiltered. And here is where most men fail. They either miss it completely or they rush. They lean in too fast. They speak too much. They break the moment. Don't do that. That is the test. That is where your masculine energy must stay steady. You must slow down. You must remain grounded. Because attraction grows in space, not pressure. When you notice these signals, do less, not more. Hold eye contact just a second longer. Let your expression soften. A slight smile. Nothing forced. Nothing exaggerated. Calm energy wins. Every time. As Lao Tzu said, nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. That is your blueprint. No rush. No anxiety. No need to prove anything. Because when you are centered, when your masculine energy is stable, you naturally attract women without chasing them. And understand this clearly, these moments often happen quietly because her mind is processing something real. Interest, curiosity, emotional openness. Sometimes she is not even aware of it herself. That is why your role is not to interrupt it. Your role is to allow it, to create a space where that feeling can grow. Modern life makes this difficult. You are distracted, busy, constantly moving, notifications, stress, pressure. And in that noise, you miss the small signals that matter the most. You miss the pause, the glance, the subtle touch. But the man who trains his awareness, who sharpens his presence, begins to see what others overlook. And that is power, quiet power. Because attraction is rarely loud. It is rarely obvious. It lives in small movements, a shift in posture, a softening of the eyes, a gentle touch of the lips. And when you recognize it, you don't react with urgency. You respond with control. That is what separates a reactive man from a grounded one. You must be the man who stays composed, the man who does not chase validation, the man who does not rush the outcome. Because when you operate from that place, you naturally attract women, not through tricks, not through force, but through presence, through certainty. through masculine energy that feels safe and undeniable at the same time. Remember this. Say less. Observe more. Feel the moment instead of trying to control it. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. That applies here. You cannot control her actions. You cannot force attraction. But you can control your energy, your pace, your response. And that is enough. More than enough. Because when you master that, when you truly understand that attraction grows in calm, in patience, in awareness, your entire experience with women changes. You stop guessing. You stop overthinking. You start seeing clearly. And once you see clearly, you move differently. You speak differently. You exist differently. That is how you attract women consistently. That is how your masculine energy becomes something they feel without you saying a word. So next time you notice that subtle gesture, that quiet movement of her lips, don't break it. Don't rush it. Stay grounded. Stay present. Let the moment breathe. Because in that silence, in that calm, attraction has room to grow. And when it grows naturally, it becomes something real, something lasting, something powerful. She crosses and uncrosses her legs, gently brushes her thigh. There's a quiet language the body speaks long before words ever catch up. You see it in the small movements, the subtle shifts, the gestures most men overlook because they're waiting for something obvious, something loud, something undeniable. But attraction rarely announces itself that way. It whispers. And if you don't learn to listen, you miss everything. A woman might cross and uncross her legs. She might lightly touch her thigh. She might tap her knee while you're talking. At first glance, it seems meaningless, random, just movement. But don't dismiss it. Don't assume it's nothing. That is where most men go wrong. They ignore the quiet signals and wait for certainty, and by the time certainty arrives, the moment is already gone. These small actions often come from nervous excitement. Not anxiety in a negative sense, but a kind of internal spark. Energy that has nowhere to go, so it spills into movement. Think about it. When someone feels completely indifferent, their body becomes still, relaxed, almost passive. There's no reason to move because there's no emotional charge behind the moment. But when attraction begins, something changes. The body wakes up. It starts to express what the mind hasn't yet said out loud. This is one of those subtle psychology tricks most men never learn. They look for words, but attraction lives in behavior. They listen to what she says, but female psychology often reveals itself through what she does without thinking. If she crosses and uncrosses her legs while maintaining eye contact, pause. Notice it. Don't rush past it. That combination matters. Movement alone can mean many things, but movement paired with steady, engaged eye contact, that suggests focus. That suggests presence. That suggests you've entered her attention in a meaningful way. Be aware. Don't overreact. Don't suddenly change your behavior in a way that feels forced. That is a mistake. Attraction grows in natural space, not under pressure. You must stay grounded, calm, observant. There's a difference between noticing and chasing. Most men chase. They see a signal and immediately try to capitalize on it. They lean in too quickly. They speak too much. They try to impress. Don't do that. Be still in your mind even if she is not still in her body. That is where real confidence shows. Understand this clearly. These gestures are not guarantees. They're invitations to pay attention. Nothing more, nothing less. The moment you treat them as certainty, you lose your balance. And once you lose your balance, the interaction shifts, subtly but powerfully. Female psychology is deeply responsive to emotional stability, not perfection, not performance, stability. If she senses that her small movements are making you reactive, you lower your value without realizing it. But if you remain composed, aware, and slightly curious, you create space for her to lean in further. That is the game most men never learn how to play. And here's something deeper. In today's world, people are tired. Long work days, endless distractions, constant stress. Conversations have become shallow, rushed, and transactional. People talk, but they don't truly connect. They listen, but they don't truly see. So when you train yourself to notice these small details, the tapping knee, the shifting legs, the light touch, you're not just learning attraction. You're rebuilding attention. You're bringing awareness back into your interactions. And that alone sets you apart. Because most men are asleep in conversations. You must be awake. Be the man who notices without staring, who understands without assuming, who feels the rhythm of the interaction without forcing it. That is power. Quiet power. And here's the truth most won't tell you. Attraction is rarely about doing more. It's about seeing more, understanding more, responding less, but with greater precision. So when you see her cross and uncross her legs, don't jump to conclusions. But don't ignore it either. Let it inform you. Let it guide your awareness. Stay present. Stay grounded. Keep the conversation smooth, natural, and unforced. That is how you use psychology tricks the right way. Not to manipulate, but to understand. Not to control, but to connect. Because when you truly understand female psychology, you stop guessing. You stop chasing. You stop overthinking every word. Instead, you begin to read the moment. And when you can read the moment, you can lead it calmly, naturally, without pressure. So don't rush. Don't force meaning where there is none. But don't be blind either. Watch the details. Respect the silence between actions. And most importantly, master your own state first. Because in the end, her movements may reveal interest, but your stillness reveals strength. Another common signal is playing with her hair. Another common signal you must learn to read is when she plays with her hair, because attraction rarely announces itself loudly. It whispers through small, repeated gestures that only a focused man can catch. She may twist a strand around her finger, brush it to one side, or gently tuck it behind her ear. You must understand this clearly. These movements are not random. They are emotional leakage. They are the body speaking when words stay silent. As William James once said, "We don't laugh because we're happy because we laugh," meaning behavior often comes before conscious awareness. So when she touches her hair, she is not thinking about attraction, she is already feeling it. These gestures tend to appear when excitement begins to rise and she needs a subtle outlet, a controlled release of that internal energy. Hair becomes the perfect channel because it is socially acceptable, soft, and feminine, allowing her to express interest without risking rejection. This is where many men fail. They ignore the quiet signals while waiting for obvious confirmation. But attraction is rarely obvious at first. It builds in layers, in patterns, in repeated micro-behaviors. Do not overlook what seems small, because what is small is often the most honest. Many men later look back and realize that recognizing this one behavior, this simple, almost invisible movement, changed everything for them. It gave them confidence. It allowed them to step forward with certainty instead of hesitation. That confidence is what begins to attract women naturally, because confidence signals safety, direction, and control, core elements of masculine energy. You must embody that without forcing it. Now, pay attention to a more modern signal, one that fits today's world. Human behavior evolves, but emotional patterns remain the same. She picks up her phone, but she doesn't really use it. She flips it in her hand, unlocks it, locks it again, scrolls without focus. You might mistakenly think she is bored or distracted, but that assumption will cost you. In many cases, it is the opposite. It is not disinterest, it is emotional overload. It is her mind trying to regulate the subtle tension created by your presence. As Carl Jung said, what you resist not only persists, but will grow in size. So instead of confronting her feelings directly, she channels them into small, repetitive actions, giving herself space to process what she feels without exposing it too soon. This is your moment to stay grounded, to stay calm, to stay centered in your masculine energy. When you remain composed while she experiences that internal movement, you become the stable force she unconsciously leans toward. That is how you attract women, without chasing, without forcing, without overcompensating. Understand this deeply. Attraction is not built through constant talking. It is built through emotional impact, through presence, through the ability to read and respond without panic. In modern life, Where distractions are everywhere and attention is fragmented, a man who can stay present, observant, and composed stands out immediately. He becomes rare, and rarity creates value. Do not rush to fill silence. Do not interrupt her small gestures. Do not question every movement. Instead, observe, interpret, and act with quiet certainty. That is what strengthens your masculine energy. That is what allows you to attract women in a natural, effortless way. And that is how you begin to master not just attraction, but your entire presence in any social environment. Because when you learn to read these signals, you stop guessing, you stop doubting, and you start leading with clarity. And clarity is power. Clarity is confidence. Clarity is the foundation of a man who knows exactly who he is and what he brings into every interaction. Her hands can also reveal a lot. Her hands will often tell the story her words are still deciding whether to reveal, and a man who understands this doesn't chase louder signals. He pays attention to the quiet ones. When she rubs her fingertips together, slowly twists a ring, or absent-mindedly plays with a bracelet while speaking, that is not random movement. That is emotion looking for an outlet. That is tension rising beneath the surface. And if you are wise, you won't interrupt it. You won't rush to fill the silence. You will stay grounded. This is where most men fail. They try to perform instead of observe. They try to impress instead of understand. But a high-value man knows better. He knows that presence beats performance every time. So don't rush. Don't lean in too quickly. Don't try to prove anything. Just be still. Breathe slowly. Keep your voice calm. Keep your posture relaxed. Maintain steady eye contact. That alone communicates more power than 100 clever lines ever could. And this is exactly how to fall in love in a way that feels natural rather than forced. Real attraction grows in space, not pressure. Think about it. How many times have these small signals appeared right in front of you, unnoticed, ignored, misunderstood? How many opportunities slipped by, not because you lacked charm, but because you lacked awareness? Awareness is the shift. Awareness is the edge. Awareness is what separates the man who wonders from the man who understands. Once you begin to see these patterns, once you train yourself to recognize the subtle language of movement and emotion, everything changes. You become more present, more attentive, more connected to the moment. And that presence, quiet, steady, unshaken, is magnetic. It draws people in without effort. It creates comfort without words. It builds trust without trying. Women feel that. They may not explain it, but they respond to it. Because deep down, what they are drawn to is not noise, not flash, not pressure, but calm strength, emotional control, and a man who is at ease with himself. That is the essence of a high-value man. And that is why understanding these small gestures is not just about reading signals. It is about mastering yourself. Because when you are centered, when you are not desperate for validation, when you are comfortable in silence, you create a space where attraction can grow naturally. That is how to fall in love in a way that feels effortless. Not forced. Aligned, not manipulated. Because attraction is rarely about what is said directly. It is built through emotional cues, through timing, through the subtle dance of energy between two people. Once you understand this, once you stop chasing obvious signs and start recognizing the quiet ones, you begin to see things as they happen. In real time, not too late, not after the moment has passed, but right there in the present where it matters most. From that place, your actions become simpler, clearer, more effective. You don't overthink. You don't overreact. You just respond with calm awareness. And that is where your power lies. Not in forcing attraction, but in allowing it to unfold. Naturally, steadily, confidently, like a man who already knows his value and doesn't need to prove it. Another important factor is physical space. Another important factor you must learn to read is physical space, because attraction rarely announces itself with words. It reveals itself through movement, through subtle shifts that most men overlook. When a woman slowly turns her body toward you in conversation, when her shoulders angle your way, when her hips quietly align with yours, don't ignore it. That is not politeness. That is interest taking shape in real time. That is her attention choosing you. And if you want to understand how to fall in love and how attraction truly builds, you must train yourself to notice these quiet signals instead of waiting for obvious ones, because obvious usually comes too late. When she leans closer, when she slides her chair just a little nearer without explaining why, don't dismiss it. Be aware. That is comfort growing. That is her allowing you into her personal space. And a high value man recognizes that moment without rushing it, without forcing it, because he understands that attraction thrives in patience, not pressure. Mirroring is another sign you cannot afford to miss, because people instinctively copy those they feel connected to. So when you shift your posture and she follows, when your rhythm becomes her rhythm, don't question it. That is subconscious alignment. That is emotional synchronization happening beneath the surface. And if you truly want to master how to fall in love, you must realize that connection is not created by words alone. It is built through shared energy, through subtle imitation that signals comfort and familiarity. Her voice will often change too, and this is where many men fail to pay attention because they listen to words but ignore tone. Yet tone is where emotion lives. So when she softens her voice, raises it slightly, or lowers it just enough to make you lean in closer, don't brush it off. That is her inviting intimacy. That is her drawing you into her space without saying a single direct word. And a high value man notices these shifts and responds with calm presence, not overreaction. Laughter is another powerful indicator, and you must not underestimate it. Because when she laughs easily, even at simple remarks, it is not about the joke. It is about how she feels around you. It is about the emotional safety and enjoyment you create. So don't try too hard to be funny. Be grounded. Be real. Because forced humor repels, while natural presence attracts. Eye contact, however, remains one of the clearest windows into attraction, and you must learn to read it with precision. Not just whether she looks at you, but how she looks at you, how long she holds her gaze, and especially that subtle pattern where her eyes flick briefly to your lips before returning to your eyes. Don't ignore that. That is desire revealing itself quietly. That is curiosity. That is her mind exploring the possibility of closeness. And if you want to truly understand how to fall in love, you must learn to stay calm in that moment. Don't break eye contact too quickly. Don't become nervous. Hold steady because confidence is felt more than seen. Even her pupils may expand slightly, especially in softer lighting. And while you may not consciously measure it, your intuition will feel the difference. Because attraction changes presence. It changes energy. It makes moments feel heavier, more charged. Small objects in her hands can also tell a story, and you must not overlook them. Because when she rotates a cup, plays with a pen, or shifts her phone repeatedly, it often signals nervous energy. Not discomfort, but excitement that needs an outlet. And a high-value man does not misinterpret this as disinterest. He understands that attraction often comes with a touch of nervousness, especially when emotions begin to build. Hair flips are another signal layered with meaning, because when she moves her hair and exposes her neck, she is revealing a vulnerable area. And vulnerability is never offered without a sense of safety. So don't rush that moment. Respect it because attraction grows stronger when it is handled with awareness, not impatience. Her feet and legs will often reveal the truth more honestly than her words ever will, because people rarely control them consciously. So if her knees point toward you, if her feet are angled in your direction, don't ignore it. That is her body choosing you, even if her words remain neutral. And this is why a high-value man pays attention to the whole picture, not just what is said. Memory is another powerful indicator that you must value. Because when she remembers small details about you, something you mentioned casually, your favorite drink, a story you told in passing, that is not coincidence. That is attention. That is investment. And if you are serious about understanding how to fall in love, you must realize that attention is one of the purest forms of attraction. Sometimes attraction will even show up as shyness, and you must not misread it. Because when she laughs and then looks down, when she briefly covers her mouth, it is not rejection. It is emotional intensity. It is her processing a feeling that caught her off guard. And a high-value man does not pressure or tease excessively in that moment. He allows space because he understands that emotions deepen when they are respected. Finally, pay close attention to how she responds to light, natural touch, because this is where comfort becomes undeniable. So if you gently brush her arm during conversation and she remains relaxed, if she does not pull away, don't overanalyze it. That is acceptance. That is trust. That is her signaling that closeness feels right. And you must not rush beyond that point. You must not escalate too quickly because attraction is not about speed. It is about timing. It is about reading signals with clarity and responding with control. And that is what separates a man who chases from a high-value man who attracts. Because one forces outcomes, while the other understands the process. And if you truly want to master how to fall in love, then you must slow down, observe deeply, and trust what is quietly being shown to you. All right, before we truly close this video, let's take a deeper breath together and slow everything down, because this part matters more than you think. Attraction is not something that shouts. It doesn't come chasing you with clear explanations or obvious declarations. Most of the time, it whispers. It hides in the quiet space between two people, in the way she slightly adjusts her body toward you, in the way her touch lingers just a fraction longer than necessary, in the way she finds small, almost innocent reasons to close the distance. And if you're not paying attention, you'll miss it. That is where most men go wrong. They look for certainty in words. They wait for clear signals. They want confirmation before they allow themselves to feel confident. Don't do that. That mindset keeps you reactive. It puts you in a position where you are always waiting instead of leading. Be different. Start observing, not chasing. Start feeling the moment instead of trying to control it. Because when you truly understand that communication is happening beyond words, you begin to see patterns. You begin to recognize energy. You begin to realize that attraction is less about what is said and more about what is felt. And here's something important you need to remember. Just because you notice these signals doesn't mean you rush to act on them. That is where discipline comes in. That is where most men lose their edge. They see a sign and immediately they lean in too much, too fast, too eager. Don't. Hold your ground. Stay centered. Let her come closer. Let her invest. Let her curiosity grow. Because the moment you overreact, you break the tension. You remove the mystery. You make everything too easy. And attraction does not thrive in ease. It thrives in anticipation. So be calm. Be steady. Control your emotions. Not in a cold way, but in a grounded way. You are present, you are aware, but you are not desperate. You are interested, but you are not chasing. That is power. And here's the honest truth I want to leave you with. These psychology of attraction insights are not tricks. They are not shortcuts. They are simply tools to help you become more aware, more intentional, and more in control of yourself. Because at the end of the day, it's not about whether she touches your arm, your shoulder, or finds a reason to be close to you. It's about who you are when she does. Are you centered? Or are you shaken? Are you calm? Or are you rushing? Are you confident? Or are you seeking approval? Answer that honestly, and you'll understand everything. So from now on, don't just look for signs. Become the man who naturally draws them out. The man who doesn't need to force attraction because his presence already creates it. Thank you for being here, truly. If you've made it this far, it means you're not just watching. You're learning, you're refining, you're becoming sharper every single day. Stay aware. Stay disciplined. Stay grounded. And I'll see you in the next video.